No, I think you might have to set it up that way before you join, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it wasn't clicked, but there are plenty of safeguards for that, anyways. So
Bum, 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 bum.
all right, Larry, I'm gonna find you that letterhead right now. I know I have mine. If you want to, has the town seal on it, and then it just has my name. But if you want to change it to Conservation Commission and put your name on it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, yeah, just something that would look more official.
Yeah, I'll let you have that. Just don't go sending a bunch of documents out under my letterhead. It's the only thing.
I'm going to send it out over your name. That's what I'm going to do. I got to protect the innocent or protect the guilty, one or the other. I guess we can't even start the meeting without another two people.
Yeah, not yet. So did you guys both get the reminder email today with the link? Because I remember last time was we had a hard time. Yeah, okay. I made sure I resent it this morning so everybody had it.
Well, there's Michelle. That's three.
Mm-hmm.
Unmute. Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
We don't see your blue lounge chair, though.
I'm always in my lounge chair.
We don't see it because you have video off.
Not on purpose.
I could turn it off for you, Michelle, if you can't. I think I
Well,
can.
let me see if it.
I don't think. I think she's got to turn it on. I don't know if you can turn it on. You can turn it
Start
off.
my video.
I just asked her.
There it is.
There she is.
There I am.
There's the lounge chair.
There's my lounge chair.
You look so comfy there.
I live in this lounge chair. All right. So for some reason, it looks like I had two versions of this. Maybe I clicked it twice by mistake or something. So I'm gonna close this other one and see what happens. No, I don't want to leave the meeting, so I'll cancel. I don't know why it's doing that. I'll just leave it go.
So, I'm going to send you, Michelle.
There's
Hi.
Kristen.
Oops, what happened? Everybody went away. Where'd you go?
I'm
here.
I know, but I can't see you anymore. Something happened.
So I send you a letter, Michelle, because Conrad Heedy asked a question about are we following or in line with the state's green plan and the inventory, the 21% objective. So
right.
I sent him kind of like a preliminary from the chart from you.
Okay.
I copied you on it because I sent it to John Reiner and I said, I can't quite resolve what you have, what in the list of 2016 POCD and what
Right.
the POCD has. So I said, well, let me ask him. So I said, is somebody we can talk to you'll see the notes that we could kind of resolve the difference. I think it's definitional, obviously,
Okay.
what's in there or not, but that was we'll talk about that later. We're off about 2%. We're up about 2%, almost 3%.
Well, you know what? I found a lot of my stuff just by looking at the map they had, printing that out. And so I don't, God only knows what I might have missed.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But hopefully it should have all been there in the map. But
yeah, but
okay.
it was a printout of the map that was in the thing. It wasn't like it was a GIS map. It was the map that they color coded in the POCD. And I had to physically look at the map, try to find it on the GIS and make the correlation.
Oh. Versus a data set that they had.
Right. Yeah, the data set was useless for this. This is a totally different data set. That data set had nothing to do with what was in the POCD. Well, not
okay.
There's some overlap, but it didn't the data set that they gave us, and Tom explained how they decided what was included in there was based on properties people could walk on or do things on. So the majority of the stuff that we care about, that's not necessarily true. So none of the stuff that people aren't allowed on was in the data set. And so I had to find it by comparing this one map that was in the POCD.
Well, that would imply our number would be higher, not lower. Anywho, it's
No, not really. Not if I missed stuff on the map.
All right, we'll get to that. Hey, Bruce, we have a quorum and it's 5:01.
Okay. I'm ready to start the meeting if you are.
Bruce, I have one suggestion before you do that. When you put people on visual that are the guests, when they're done talking, can you shut down their visual so we're not watching them, trying to listen but not listen, like wandering around their kitchen and whatever? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I think I can promote them to panelists and then put them back to attendee.
Yeah, put it back so that we're not having to watch them do their thing while we're trying to have a meeting.
Sure. All right. We have 3 attendees right now, but I won't promote them until they want to speak during public comment.
Okay. Oh, you got Andre is out there though. You might want to let him in.
Well, I can promote all of them. Well, yeah. I mean, public communications is first. I'll promote everybody, and then
you can always
Can you hear me here? Sorry.
Yep,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, Ann.
Okie dokie. All right. Do you need to read your missive, Bruce?
Just that this is the Conservation Commission, the June 1st meeting, the regular meeting for the Conservation Commission. This is taken obviously through Zoom. The way we take public comments is during the public communications portion of the agenda. Attendees, which I have now promoted all the panelists, if anyone would like to speak or make any comments, the chairman will ask, and just raise your hand and I will unmute you and you'll be able to speak. As we go through the agenda items, the chairman may, at his discretion, sometimes allow other public communications. So if anyone would like to speak on any other items, just raise your hand and we can call on you if it's appropriate at that time. Other than that, I'll leave it to you, Larry, to start the meeting.
All right. We are being recorded.
Yes, we are recording.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. We're set for the roll call. So as of right now, we have myself as chairman. We have Tom Olson, Ann Schmidt, Kristen DeSante, Michelle Fitzpatrick, and that represents the commission to date. We'll see if we get a couple of latecomers join. I'd like to recognize and say hi to Andre, who's joining us is from the town council. So if you want to throw something in Andre, you can always raise your hand. We'll be happy to recognize you. That's the approval of minutes. First item on the agenda. Let's see. So
I move we accept the minutes as presented in the agenda package.
I'll second. Kristen, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 I had a couple corrections.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, should have asked for discussions first. Ann, go ahead.
Oh, and my hand was raised. I'll lower it now. Sorry. So Conrad Heady's name is misspelled on the second page. Items of, right above items of business.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Good catch. Yes. Sorry about that, Conrad.
I think that was it. Yeah, data team or parcel team. I didn't know what you preferred, but data team is fine.
All right. So Tom, do you accept that addendum?
Yes, Tom Olson here. I accept the amendment and continue with the approval.
All right. All in favor of the motion to accept with the amendment? Raise their hands. Ann?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
Doing
we're
it.
raised on the
Oh,
participant.
we raised. Okay. All right.
It's easier just to do it like this.
It is kind of
Okay.
easier to do it like that, but it's not recorded as well, I don't think. So who knows?
All right.
Well,
All
Bruce
right,
is
that's-
recording it.
I'm
Bruce is recording. So that's passed unanimously. Thank you. So I got to lower my hand. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So the third item on the agenda is public communications. So we do have several members of the public, and let me pause for a second to see if anyone wanted to provide some public input. I don't see any hands being raised. Going once. Okay. Let's see, so that one I'll put down later. Items of business. So the first is Trails Day 2020 was the first item on the agenda. Now that's been, I guess, canceled in terms of group events. I know Tom put out a brief video. I don't know, Ann, if you did or not.
Well, I was going to, but Bruce forwarded Tom's, so
Ah.
I didn't need to do it twice.
Okay, all right.
But I
that's
did the
fine.
walk.
All right. So that's good. So that's out there. So I think that one we could strike out for future. We can start talking about Trails Day 2021. Hopefully, it would be a better event.
Yeah, hopefully.
Pequot Woods. That was a item that was raised by Bray, and he's not here. So the follow-up though was that Bruce said staff would reach out to inquire about possibly posting a sign. I seem to remember something happened there.
Yes, that's correct. This is Bruce Lofgren from Planning and Development Services. I did reach out to Mark Berry. If you all remember from the last meeting, we had a conversation about sometimes there's suspicious activity occurring at some of these trailheads, not just Pequot Woods, but really all over town. And we thought that it might be a good idea to post a sign with a number saying, if you see any illegal activity, suspicious activity, call this number. And just to let everyone know the right number to call. We're not getting 911 calls for something that's not an emergency. I reached out to Mark Berry, and we actually talked to the police department as well, and they thought it was a great idea. So Parks and Recreation is making signs. We're going to put the non-emergency dispatch number on there. And we're going to at least put it on Pequot Woods trailhead and probably all the other town trailheads as well. So, yeah,
All
I
right.
think great suggestions. So thank you all for that.
All right. Well, and a lot more people using open space these days. I think we've stated this in every meeting. It still seems the volume is going up when I kind of traipse around the countryside. And I will say that 90% of the folks are using proper trail etiquette is my term, where we kind of separate if we're passing each other or allow the passage of one to another and maintain social distancing. So I think that's going well. So I know, Andre, you can kind of put that on a ticky mark if that does come up. Is our anecdotal observation is that people are being responsible and with that increased use in open space, and the signs we just mentioned are just another safety precaution given the fact there's many more people out there. So I think we could probably strike that one off going forward. 2020 objectives. Want me to share that, Bruce?
Yeah, I think that would be the best way.
All right, let me. All right. So there we go. Is that big enough for people to see?
It's fine for me.
I can see it for a change.
You can
Look,
make
I
it a
have
little
them.
bigger. I wouldn't mind a little bigger if you can make it a little bigger.
I have it on my iPad too, so I got it either way.
I got one
That-
screen.
Does that help?
That helps.
Okay. All right. I'm here to help. All right. Okay. So this is what I've been doing is, as we did this at the beginning of the year, it's kind of shrinking as things become promoted, if you will. So the first item was really getting more collaboration with the other jurisdictions and municipalities, et cetera, that are around. So I think the next major event we'll talk about on the plan, and we've got that coming up in terms of who the reviewers are going to be for the plan. So I'll defer that for a second. Is there any other items? I'll just quickly go through the list outside of the conservation plan review that any of you would like to mention. I guess I'll start with the city of Groton, Michelle.
No, Larry, my suggestion would be just ask if there anybody, instead of going through them all again, just say, does anybody have anything to say rather than asking us all, is my opinion. But I don't have anything new.
All right. Sometimes I have to.
I know.
Michelle. Okay, Groton Long Point, Groton Conservation Advocates, Scotia, Avalonia. I guess the only thing is I have had some communications, but it's dealing mainly with the no-ink the school property issue, which is on the agenda coming up later, and I'll get to that. Filling the vacancy. Any recommendations? Anyone come up with any names recently? All right.
We're still looking for a tree person, right? Somebody who has a lot of tree knowledge, ideally.
That would be good. Yes.
Mhm.
Let's see. I think we'll skip over the grant submission. It's now 6-1, so that one is kind of got screwed up a little bit. So I don't know what the town has done on that one. Plastics. At the last town council, we did present our position or input. The town council basically, I won't say deferred. They did not want to delay the ordinance, but did
Great.
talk about using the hardship option. And I shouldn't say wait and see, but that's kind of where they were. So I think that's part of what we wanted. We wanted to be proactive and not let it accidentally happen, but have them actually consider it, and that's where they came out on that. Let's see. Tree management, tree advisory responsibilities. We are putting that in the future stewardship section, so I think I could probably delete that going forward. Impact of climate change on coastal land use. Anne, that was one of the ones you were interested in?
Right, and I think last time I was requesting that what I wanted to do is get feedback on kind of a summary list of what I have. And you had mentioned that this was in relation to the open space plan, right? So a lot of it is probably in there to a certain degree, but basically I have like 3 different kind of categories: general climate change impacts, and then impacts on different, well, let me just go through them. It's really short. So sea level rise, overall increase in temperature, resulting in shorter winters, longer hot summers with more frequent periods of drought, intense rainfall, increase in moisture in the air, leading to more intense storms and storms, increased frequency and intensity of hurricanes, nor'easters, and bomb cyclones, more invasive species, insect-borne diseases, and increased stressed ecosystems. So just kind of summarizing those things, and then the impact on coastal ecosystems. So kind of putting it in terms of infrastructure, the actual coastal ecosystem, water quality, wastewater management, impact on human health and economy. And then the third section would be a mitigation adaptation strategies that are possible for exactly the same categories: infrastructure, coastal ecosystem, water quality, wastewater management, human health, economy, and then adding in an education component on all of these effects with in the schools, with the public, in multi kind of different areas.
All right, now some of that is in the current text.
I think the majority is, right, Tom? Tom knows the, yeah. I think there's some, and some of this is not always related to open space, but some of it, so what I could do, what I thought I would do is expand on this and send it to I guess the text team, and then we can see if there's any additional elements from what I have that we want to include in the open space plan. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, plus we have the sustainability committee also working on a lot of that. So
yes.
So we kind of wanted to have more of an introduction and then defer
yes
a lot to them. So as long as we kind of work those two together, then I think that's fine. Do we
know what the status of the, Tom, I know you attended one of the meetings. Any updates?
Yes, I've attended a couple of the December one and then their May meeting. The team, they have a separate agenda of things that they're working on. If there's something that we feel that we need to be going above and beyond, they have a fairly structured assumptions that they are working with, because they're more interested in the resiliency to and not just the factors of climate change. They accept climate change, and they said, we're going to assume that we're going to get 20 inches or whatever the number is amount of coastal flooding, for example. Okay, so they are working to specific factors and effects on the town, and then they're looking at how the infrastructure needs to react to that, rather than what things the town can do to mitigate the factors. They're just looking at how do I'm assuming that I'm going to get this stuff coming across. The water's going to come, the heat's going to come, as far as rather than trying at this time now if we're looking at trying to say, hey, this is things that town could do to lessen these effects, which are fairly global as opposed to town.
Local.
You know, from a local perspective, yeah, they'll take a look at it, but I just don't know if there's going to be much effect with that relative to actions that would really need to be coordinated with them. So I would be recommending some type of a white paper or something that we would, as the Conservation Commission, say, hey, here's what we think can be done from a town perspective. So being both us and the resiliency, we are only advisory committees to the task force and commission to the town council, but these are the actions that we would recommend that the town be taking from a sustainability and impact of climate change actions. Probably be a better way to do it rather than forcing ourselves into just sticking with the open space plan itself. I think,
Okay.
I think we acknowledge the open space, but we put it in the open space plan in regard to what we're buying and what we're maintaining from open space perspective. So we have that background information in our plan as a referencing point of view. But I think from the action plan for the 2020 action plan, I think we should be looking more at a white paper as far as on what actions we would be recommending to coordinate with the Resiliency Task Force for action by the town.
All right. Bruce, let the record show, I think that Ray joined at 5:18.
Yeah, I recorded that.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ann. I think the one item that we had in there, it's in our actions in the plan, is the protection of the space that will become marshland with the rise. So I think that's one action item that I think is appropriate and is already in there. So you're right. The rest of it does become a little bit different approach.
So can I make one
Yep.
comment on that? When I was doing some research on that, I went to the Nature Conservancy site, and they have actually from their coastalresilience.org, I think it's the website, they have actually pinpointed down to the parcel numbers which parcels would be, they are designated at different levels, like critical parcels for marsh, so inland potential future marsh areas that should be protected. So I can put that together for the data team, the parcel team, to look at as just something that we should keep on the radar.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
No, that would be good, because I thought we had the general map, but if you got it by parcel, and there's not that many of them because we got kind of rocky coast, but so I think it'd be manageable, if you will, just for the town of Groton. So that'd be a good input.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. The next one, in terms of the Sustainable Connecticut Fund Sharing Program, that one I haven't done anything more on with the fire district. After that is the Pollinator Pathway, though we do have a topic on the agenda, Kristen, for Pollinator Pathway. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, with everything that's shut down, there just hasn't been a lot of community outreach. It's just, I'd say it's just pretty much on hold until next year, most likely, as far as a big town push. Planting season's kind of passed already, and not much going on.
All right. In terms of the stewardship, so Bray, I know that was yours, but we agreed at the last meeting, or the meeting before last, of having a follow-on document targeted in 2021 that's focused on stewardship. So is that, we want to keep that this item, kind of wrap that into that 2021 objective?
I would agree with that. I want to apologize for being late, but it turns out that my operating server wouldn't allow me to join your meeting. And then it also said that I needed to download the new upgrade. And so that took another 5-10 minutes. And then I had to go to another way to get in because there was no initial email that said you click on and automatically came up. So I had to go to the town site to figure out how to join you. So I apologize for all that. It was a big mess. Technology is wonderful.
I understand. You hate it and you love it at the same time.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, the Sustainable Connecticut program, Bruce. That one was in your pocket.
Yes. The only update I have on that is we haven't really seriously. So as you all know, we're bronze certified now. We got bronze certification last year. There is a silver certification. They don't have a gold certification yet, but we haven't seriously considered if we're going to go for silver this year or not. There is a few interns that are going to work at our Council of Governments, and they have reached out to me to see if they can help. The only problem with Sustainable Connecticut is there's a lot of activities that involve, a lot of group events and things like that. So I'm not really sure how other towns are kind of incorporating, activities with all the COVID-19 restrictions, but it's something we're going to try to look into over the summer, and hopefully we can get silver. If not, we'll definitely be looking at silver next year.
What's the timeline on that again? When you have to get the input in?
It's due. I think it's the third week in August.
Okay.
We have a few more months here to get it in, and we actually overachieved on bronze, so we don't need too many more items for silver. So it's something that could be attainable.
All right. Well, getting the plan out would certainly help, right? An updated conservation plan. So that's a positive.
We would.
And if there's anything to get to the bronze to the silver, let us know. See if there's a way we can help with that.
Okay. I'll be able to update more next meeting.
All right.
I'll put that down.
All right. Support town and manager requests. We are still getting some, which is good news. I'll give more on that on the report of the chair coming up later. The Trails Task Force, Michelle, any
Yep.
update there?
Yes. So the task force meets this month. We meet quarterly. So this month is the next meeting. I would recommend that we add them to the list of people to distribute the plan to for review. Now, most of the people on the task force are also on some of the other groups that we are already planning to distribute it. But I think we should specifically, and I kind of promised them this anyway, specifically include, give to Mark ask him to distribute to all the people that are on the Trails Task Force also.
All right, well, hold that thought. That's a specific topic coming up.
Yep.
And the other item is the Sealy School property. Although there's been some communication with some local property owners around that to me, for you, and we're basically, I won't say treading water, but we're waiting for, I guess the next drop of information on that project. So I don't have anything new to report, other than we're trying to keep on top of that to see how we can, I guess, participate and provide input as needed. Same on the Mystic School property. I mean, it's basically the same approach. I did not have anything else. All right. So that is the 2020 objectives.
We do have a member of the public. It looks like Liz has her hand raised. If you'd like to take her comments, I can promote her.
All right.
Make you aware of it. I'll promote her.
She's still on mute.
Yeah.
Maybe she has to unmute herself.
I can unmute her too. Yeah. Or
I don't
maybe,
see a hand anymore.
yeah, maybe she's not there. I just saw her hand go up, so thought I'd let you know.
All right.
Maybe she doesn't
All
have
right. Let's keep chugging along. All right, there was a input on the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, and I do believe we've got that was in the handout, wasn't it, Bruce? In the
Yes.
Yes, that was in the handout, and it looks like Laura is here, and she's working on the Pollinator Pathways. I'm not sure if she can unmute herself and wants to explain the project. Not.
This looks great.
All right, so I think we had two. Oops, we had a couple of memos we're going to do in support. And I think this was out, so I would trust that the members of the commission had a chance to look at these. And I think what we're going to need is two different. I probably should bring it up from the agenda item. Hold on, let me shift this and share from the agenda. Should be this one. There we go. All right, is that visible to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is go through the two memos and basically either make it text adjustments. And I did say we could, since the timeline was short, is to get it out and basically publish it today. So I'd like to spend the time to go through that. I don't know, Tom, did you want to add something here? Because I know we kind of came through you.
This is Tom Olson. Yes, my only comment to the Eastern Connecticut one in regard to their support was they mentioned the words in here regarding this project proposal at the bottom, the last line of the first paragraph was this project proposal is partner with towns, residents, businesses, install rain gardens in high priority areas. Pathways in the tri-town area is a great way to improve water quality and increasing importance in habitat. As a reader not familiar with this terminology of tri-town area, I'm a little concerned that we should probably spell it out or whatever, saying, is this New London, Groton, Stonington, or is it Groton, Ledyard, Preston?
Yeah,
or...
I agree.
Good point. Yep. Tri-town area, comma, Groton, whatever it is. I don't even know
which ones the ECC is working with.
Laura, do you have, can you clarify that point?
I'm not sure if there's another Laura on here, but this, I'm just a resident listening and I had nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Wrong Laura. Okay. So I believe that meant Groton. I'm kind of editing the one as we do this because we have to get through
So
this.
where did this come from? Via who?
This came from, hold on, let me get the original.
National Fish and
Yep,
Wildlife
input.
Foundation, but someone must have directed it to us.
Yes, it was. Hold on.
This is Tom Olson. It's not for it's going to the ECCD, the Eastern Connecticut Conservation Commission, contacted Larry. I saw a copy of that request. I think it's, and through, because they also had a request through GOSA, and I saw it when it came through the GOSA channels. And they're applying to a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and specifically for their Long Island Sound Futures Fund 2020 is the specific grant. And that's what the request is for. And they're looking for, and the information, they're just looking for a letter of support from us as a contributing town to support their application that they submitted separately. I did not see the entire package that was submitted, but they're looking, because that's due tomorrow by midnight, June 2nd. And so they want to include this in their package of stuff that they're submitting, is the way I understand it.
I think it'd be awesome to help with that. Awesome to help select some sites and have some, be working with a group.
Yeah, it was the, I'm sorry, I did have that mixed up. Sorry about that, Laura. It was from Mora, and it was a Pollinator Pathways project. Figured you'd like that one, Kristen. So the Tri-Town was in the, what's in quotes there. So I'm going to change that.
Change it to what?
I'm going to change it, Groton, New London, Stonington.
Or
Okay.
Tri-Town, comma, Groton.
Right. Yes. Yep.
So people can recognize. You
This
don't
is
need to get rid
Michelle.
of it.
Do we know for sure those are the 3 towns?
Well, it's the 3 towns we're interested in.
Okay.
So,
Because a lot of times we have Ledger connected when we do stuff with Groton.
yeah, but this is on the sound. I mean, this
okay.
whole, right.
Okay.
That's
it.
what it's for, right? So,
Got it. Okay.
Actually, Larry, not to interrupt, but it does say Groton, Ledyard, and Preston as the tri-towns.
That's usually what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the email correspondence that we received from Maura Robbie, not Laura. Sorry, Laura, the viewer. It was more Maura. Yeah, I'm getting this from an email to you, Larry, on it was Saturday, actually, last Saturday.
all right. That seems a little strange to me, but okay. I will change that. All right. Then the second part was Downtown Mystic Resiliency and Sustainability Plan. So that one I've just put up. So you can look at that again and see if we are in support of submitting that again to support their effort for obtaining that fund.
So Larry, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is Ann Schmidt. It's the town of Groton's application. Is it a specific, is this from the task force, the Sustainability and Resilience Task Force, or is it?
No, this is separate. It's not a town-sponsored funding request.
Well, it says the town of Groton's application, Downtown Mystic Resiliency and Sustainability, the first. Am I not reading that right?
What it
Yeah, it
says.
says
Town of Groton's application, the second one, yeah.
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 This is Tom Olson. As far as my request would be to Bruce, has this been coordinated by the planning department?
I'm sorry. My internet went out for a second there. I heard Ann's request. I can explain what this is if you like.
Yeah.
Sure. So this is a grant application that I have been working on. So this is what we wanted to do. We've identified several areas in town that are susceptible to sea level rise, and one of the areas was downtown Mystic. So originally we wanted to do a plan for the entire town, but we chose to focus just on downtown Mystic this time. So what this is going to be is looking at previous studies that were in downtown, and also compiling new data to try to put together a plan that really prioritizes what needs to be done to make a more sustainable and resilient Mystic. We're hoping to incorporate a lot of business input into this. A lot of times when you read these type of sustainability plans, it's, the answer tends to be, well, you shouldn't be there anyways. And, sea level rise is going to come, and you should just, start planning on coastal retreat. And, that's all helpful to know, but we really want to try to put out a product that gives businesses and residents some tools to be able to try to prepare their property and their business for the effects of climate change and sea level rise, whether that be through insurance, grants, or just, educating on them on, where we see sea level rise going and how do we see it affecting their specific properties. So how do we figure that out? A lot of studying, a lot of mapping, a lot of public meetings. We're going to have a series of meetings on that. And we're looking to hire a consulting firm, and it should start hopefully, by this time next year, if we do receive the grant. But it's not. I don't know. I'm not sure if we're going to get the grant or not, because usually Long Island Sound Futures, their top priority is more pollution reduction, habitat restoration. But the city of Groton did apply for a grant very similar to this one last year, and they did receive it. So we're doing our best to try to also get some funds, because it's really something important that we need to start planning for. So we hope we hope that you'll support this with this letter here, and it will go a long way to showing that other organizations in town support it.
Okay, shouldn't the letterhead be not the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation? Shouldn't that be the town of Groton or something at the top of the letterhead?
No, that's where it's going.
Yeah,
that's where it's going too. Okay.
Yeah.
This is Tom Olson. The thing that, from your discussion, I appreciate the background information. Should we not include a reference in here to just for confusion factors with the National Fish, with the foundation, to endorse that you supported last year in the 2019 round the city of Groton. This is a separate, basically the other side of the town, and for maybe some statement into that in regard to says, hey, you did a similar thing last time, just to remind them, and that this is a different part of the town and it's a different entity that they're going to be supporting. I just didn't know if that would help the from listening to your discussion here to refresh their point of view on it also.
So Bruce, on this one, then this gets directed to you or to the town, and then you take care of the grant, as the other one gets directed back to Maura, and she'll put that in separately for the pollination. Is that how this should be approached?
Yeah, that's correct. And yeah, Tom, I think that would be a good addition to this, just to put that in there and remind them. But yes, I'm hoping that you would support this, you sign it, and I will be finalizing the grant application tomorrow. And the pollinator one, we'll just, if you support that one, we will email that out to Maura, and I'm sure she's applying tomorrow as well for her organization.
I move that we support both of them.
I'll second. This is Michelle.
Is there discussion? All right, call for a vote. All those in favor, I guess, hands up, Ben. I see a unanimous support for both letters. So Bruce, I will get both of these signed tonight and get it to you, or at least this one to you. And I'll send the other one out to Maura so that she can prosecute as well. All right, that was easy enough. All right, now we're into the meat of this meeting, which is the conservation plan update.
Just
so,
a point of order.
Yep.
It's Tom Olson. You had the item number 4 was the Knowing School, and I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the agenda here. I see.
I was wondering about that too. Thanks, Tom.
All right, I apologize. I did say I was going to talk about that, and I didn't. All right, so where that is that there was a session last week where there was a presentation of the staff homework, if you will, for the options for the Knowing School parcel. I had gotten a preliminary copy of that, and as a result of that, I revised our memo and added it to that staff document. And basically it was what we agreed to before. And I just changed the numbers in the model because they changed the numbers in the model, or they changed the assessment value. And I didn't want to argue it. It went up by about 100 grand, right? It didn't change any of the conclusions we've had. So out there is, and I guess I could bring it up, is a, let me go find it. Hold on one second. And let's see. No, maybe more than a second while I find it.
While you're looking for that, this is Tom Olson. I just,
Yep.
It was in the newspaper today in regard to a statement
Yes.
relative to that the Conservation Commission is going to be making a part of the presentation next Tuesday at the Committee of the Whole for the Town Council. And are you the guys, I assume you're the one that's going to be doing that?
Yes, they did. Did I bring up the right one? Wrong one. I'm trying to share the screen with the memo that was in there, so you don't have to go look it up yourself.
It's in the agenda, yeah?
I don't think we
I did not
put
see
it in
it
there.
in the agenda.
Yeah, hold on. Well, let me bring it up. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So what this is, let me make it bigger. You'll say it was the reference June 3rd. That's the last one we put out. And basically, I just said that we wanted to update our input because there was a change in assessed property value, and they added an option for affordable housing and conservation development in some of the recommendations. So more, let's call it not single family, but more highly dense one. The net of that, and I'll just zip down here. I said it didn't really change our recommendation. I updated these numbers here. When you look plus or minus, given the degree of accuracy that we've got, it's kind of like, guys, there's no major economic advantage to the town one way or another. I mean, if you're talking 32,000 a year versus 38,000 a year, is that within the range of accuracy or not? The only time that it would be substantially beneficial to the town from an economic point of view, that's what that's talking about, is if you could convince somebody to build and sell $1 million homes. That then kicks it up to maybe 100 grand a year savings. So the issue after talking to a bunch of folks and some builders, and also looking at the types of homes, that's way outside the average in the Noank area, outside of Groton Long Point, right, which isn't Noank, but up there on the hill, you're talking the average in the 400,000 or so range, which is what I used for this analysis. So it seemed unlikely to me that somebody's going to spend $700,000 to buy the land, another $1.5 million to develop the land, then go on spec to build, $5 million worth of houses to go sell in an area that it's way above the surrounding homes and houses. Now that becomes a decision for the council. That's just my own personal observation. So my intent was to present information in terms of what I would call the best facts I can, and then add some of my personal observations, on that, what I just said, in the meeting, to say, my view is a bird in a hand. I mean, you know what you can do with, an open space. It does have value, and it does have additional considerations that it's tough to put a monetary value on. That's what I had down here. And so I would put that. The other thing that has happened on the Noank one is I was asked by Rachel Franco, one of the town council people, about the value of having ball fields there. You know, her view is that we can make money on the ball fields. I tried to come up with a business case on that, and you know, the best I could do, and I kind of exchanged back to her, is somewhere between, you know, $40,000 and $1 million you could spend on building a ball field. But best case is, I said, maybe it'd be $2,000-3,000 benefit to the town if you put in a modest ball field, because it's not an area that you can run tournaments or anything else because of limited parking. The fact that you can't put lights there, or at least my assumption from my time on the zoning commission is that we wouldn't support lights there. But again, that's just my personal opinion. So there wasn't a lot you could add into that. You know, maybe you could add another couple of grand to the 32, make it 34. But again, you know, within the margin of error. So it didn't substantially change anything. The next session on that, I believe, there's a June 9th session where it will be discussed. And as mentioned earlier, I did get an invite to speak at that, and that came in actually today, to provide some verbalization of the input from us. So I guess well, I shouldn't say unless. What I'd be looking for is any discussions or points that, in addition to what I said, should be highlighted in that presentation to the town council. Let me open it up for that.
This is Tom Olson. I agree with everything that you said. I fully support it. Just an offer. Do you need any of us to be to be your backups at all for next Tuesday?
In normal times the answer would be yes, but you got to get on the Zoom presentation. I don't know, it gets a little more complicated. So I'm thinking, get me your input now or before the meeting, and I'll put it in there. I'll just make it easier to do. It's a little tougher to do in the Zoom format. So that would be my request, other than, like I said, the things there. Now, we've done this a couple of times already. So like I said, there's not a lot of new information other than the modest update that I just went over with you. Any other comments on that?
Good night. This is Bray. Can I ask again a question about the ball field? I know that last year or the year before, that the Parks and Rec director had interest in looking at the field and see what it might cost to bring it up as an active field for Parks and Rec. And that was going to be sort of a supporting element to leave it not as single family residence or condos, the list that you have here, but more of supporting as open space. And if the Parks and Rec has their interest in it by having a ball field, that would, I would think, enhance the leaving it as open space.
All right, I'll reach out to them and see if they've got any formal input on that.
I've got a comment.
Yep.
Another thing to look is just look at the population demographics. You know, this area is sort of an older skewing community, and if you look globally at the demographics, the ball field age child demographic is in steep decline right now. And so you may be building a lot of ball fields for a cohort that is really going to be a minimal. I mean, I think they should really analyze the town demographics and see if that's a good way to invest town money, especially something that's going to get locked in. You know, once those chain link fences and all that stuff is there, it's really not open space. But I mean, demographically, is that a smart use of the land?
Well, I think that's also a question for Parks and Rec, because they usually look at those kinds of things. Yeah. So I'll ask them.
Because we have a tapering baby boomlet right now in steep deep down mode.
It's been a general decline for 10 years in terms of,
Right.
of school age. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Other comments?
Just to add, Bright, just to add to her comment was, I know previous years, Parks and Rec has always been behind in having fields. So knowing lots of folks who had kids growing up through that are beyond college now, but there was always a very difficult time having ball fields. One ball field that is now gone is called Cutler. Right now it's a big hole in the ground for a new school. So as things change and morph around, the Noang school property may still have value to it because it's now an open place and it's accessible and there are lots of positives about it. But it's something I agree with Larry that a conversation needs to be had with Mark Berry of Parks and Rec.
It's Tom Olson, just to kind of follow up on that. This past weekend, I received the Town of Groton Community Recreational Needs Assessment and Feasibility Study Survey. I was selected as one of the folks from the town that they went out to did. I don't know how many other people saw this, but that specific question in regard to athletic courts, basketball, tennis, soccer, baseball, football, are specifically talked about in here. And I didn't know if they have some preliminary results from that through Parks and Recs that you may want to just kind of reference to. It says, hey, you're off doing a survey on this stuff as far as on what that demand is. Do they have any kind of input already back and kind of, pass it off to that way to see what the town needs are relative to the survey results?
All right, I'll certainly ask is like if I was spending money, I'd kind of extend the Pequannock Park one, because that does get used and there is parking and especially with the school next door, though, that parking will be available. So that's one of the concerns I had with the Noang area is the lack of parking to be able to hold anything there. All right, I will then follow up with Mark Berry and fold that into the comments, assuming he has some input for me. All right, thank you for reminding me of that. That was somehow I had it there and I actually did cross it off when I do my cross off list. Okay, so now we're back on track, I think, back to the conservation plan update. That's the Noang one. All right, so I think, let me stop sharing here. So maybe the way to do this is to go through the questions that are outstanding from, I think Bruce put out a note that came, and it's in your package, that was drafted by Tom and the text committee. I kind of added a couple of line items on it, but going through that, the first item on that list would be the reviewer organizations. So without objections, I'd like to start to work through that particular list of questions. And let me find list of reviewers and whoops, list of reviewers and bring that up. Let me do screen share again. And we will talk about that. Okay. Oh, this was the original list of questions from Tom. All right. There it is. That's the list of agencies. Now, we did hear one suggestion to add the Trails Task Force to this list.
Yes, please.
That was one item. Is there other comments, additions that would go on this list from anyone out there?
This is Bray. Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
One place it needs to go to is to Bruce, to the planning department.
Yeah, it's in there twice, I thought. Why did I think that was in there? Resilience, planning and zoning. Oh, the planning and zoning commission isn't the staff.
No.
Correct.
Yep. No. That's a fair point.
I thought we were waiting to send it to staff until it had been reviewed by everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. So I think a courtesy copy. I think, Bray, maybe the way to split this is send a courtesy copy saying it's out for review. And rather than having the staff spend staff time reviewing it, get other input and then send it, tell the staff, here's the updates, but send it to them as a courtesy copy. Maybe I should ask Bruce his input on that.
A lot of the agencies or commissions or boards on this list, so I know like the Planning and Zoning Commission, our department staffs them. Inland Wetland Agency, they staff them too. So in order to really get it to those commissions, it would have to go through our department. And what's going to happen when it goes on their agenda, they're going to be looking for our department's, opinion on it. And it might be best to kind of have a more finalized version in place that the planning department looks at. And when we look at it and give our comments, you send it out then. I mean, that's how I'd handle it, at least for some of these organizations. But you wanted to send it out to, GOSA, Avalonia, some of the local stakeholders and get their comments before, I think that's okay. But for some of these, I would think, planning staff comments would be appropriate first.
Other comments on that?
So this is Michelle. So we basically need to pull out the ones that are the related, and you can. So it's the inland wetlands, the parks and recreation, planning and zoning.
Groton City Conservation Commission should wait.
Well, that's the city, so they don't need. We can send it to the city, right? Or does that go through? That doesn't go through the town as well, does it, Bruce?
No, that wouldn't go through us.
Yeah, so the Groton City and the Groton Long Point, those go right to those two groups. So I think I caught all the ones that you would be talking about, right, Bruce?
Yeah. I mean, really, I would just say reserve the town boards until you get town staff comment. All the other ones, send them out.
Right. So send it to the other groups now. Well, after tonight, if we think we're ready. Send it to other groups, get back, do the edits based on that feedback. And I would say, ask them to get feedback by, next month's meeting. I'm not sure how you want to time their feedback. And then make those changes and then give it to the town to give to the other commissions. Is that what you're trying to say, Bruce?
Yeah, that would work. That would be my suggestion, yes. And also, I'd like to suggest Stonington and Ledyard too, because a lot of our open space and trails about that town, or those towns. So it might be good to get your comments.
Conservation commissions in those towns? Or are you talking about the planning department of those towns?
Maybe the Conservation Commission would be the most appropriate for those towns.
Yep.
The only one that I would add then would be New London, because we talked about them going, because they're on the other side of the river.
Right.
We do mention them to some degree in the Greenway discussions.
All right. So what I'm hearing is a multi-step approach. The first step is to go with conservation groups primarily that are within the town. Then go to the town planning and staffing and commissions and conservation and surrounding towns. And then the third one would be, I guess, a formal release to the town manager and the town council. Is that the three-step process?
Sounds like it to me.
Now, from a public point of view, once we I mean, the iterations of this have been out there in the public domain already. And I'm thinking in the first round, any member of the public can certainly provide input.
Right.
Right? Does any?
Yeah, I agree with that. Now's the time for people to give us that kind of input.
All right. So it would be conservation plus public. It would be planning. And then the.
Can I say something?
Yep.
Yeah, how would that work? Like right now, as things are to get public input, would that be via Zoom meeting, via in writing? Like, how do we inform the public that we're seeking their input? You know,
Well,
like
it's
the town website or.
Well, we could, for example, on the public website said, we've just released this for comments, you know, to Conservation Committee. Please direct your comments in writing to, you know, this following email, right, account.
Does that sound right, Bruce? I mean, do you have any other?
I mean, you could really you could get public comment whenever you'd like, really. I mean, you could do it through the website. You know, I mean, technically the public can comment on this every time we put it in the agenda packet as well. It's been out to the public, but yeah, I think posting it to the town website, facilitating some comments, giving some time for that can be done now, or it can be done at really any one of those stages you just mentioned.
Yeah, remember, we're an advisory committee, so we're not required to do a formal data gathering session. So we want to be as open as possible, but knowing how long we've been working on this, that would take, you know, it would take a while. So I think that might be the way to go, Bruce. I'll have to chat with you about putting an announcement when we publish that says it's available, and then provide a link to the document standalone outside of our agenda sessions where it normally is, and make it available if somebody wants to, plus a pointer that says, hey, direct your comments. You know, maybe we'll just send them all to Tom, you know, what the heck.
That's fine.
He's the master of the text.
So we'll have to think about who we want to direct it to, whether it's one of us or whether it's just a general address within the town. So we'll chat about that.
Okay.
Okay, so I would look for a motion on the to make this from a proposed list to be the list of agencies to review. Someone willing to throw a proposal or a motion out there?
Right, I move that it's Michelle, I move that we do the review of the open space plan according to the discussion we had, which is the 3 layers. The first layer, the conservation groups and the public, the second layer, the town, and then the third, the town commissions, and then the third layer, the town council, and whatever other details need to go in there.
Is that enough, Bruce?
Yes, I'm just trying to write it down.
Okay.
And I can second that motion.
Did you, I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't catch, did you add in town staff to this list and Stonington and Ledyard, or?
Yeah, I would, for the second one, well, by definition, because of how we talked about it, that we give it to the town staff to then give to the other commissions. And the local, or the surrounding town commissions, conservation commissions would go at the same time.
Step 2.
I think that's what we agreed to.
Yes, that's what, yep.
What we didn't talk about was the timing. Obviously needs to...
yeah, hold off on that. A different question.
That's a different question.
But we'll get the plan first, and then we can do the schedule. All right. Okay. More discussion, or any discussion. All right, Bruce, could you read the motion as you've captured it?
All right, so it's to the motion was to send out the plan as discussed during this meeting. Step 1 would be open space groups and other nonprofits. I wrote step 2 would be town staff and town commissions, and step 3 would be town council. Oh, and also step 2 was public. I have that as well.
I
So-
think I would say step 1 includes the public, but then step 2 included the surrounding town conservation commissions.
I agree.
That was the discussion.
Okay, got it. All right, so send it out. Step 1 is open space groups and public comment and conservation groups. Step 2 is the town and town commissions, and step 3 is town council.
And so the question that I had for the first step, so the Groton City and Groton Long Point Conservation Commissions, are those first step or second step? I'm thinking first step, but I'm open to suggestion.
Yeah, one works for me.
Yeah, because we're talking about them as a conservation commission
Right.
entity.
Right. Okay.
Right here, Bruce, this does not have to go before the town council, does it?
No, it doesn't need to, because this is just it's not required by law that we have this, so there's no formalized, process of approval.
Well, no, we're not going to town. Well, yes and no. We are, by charter, obligated to provide an inventory once a year. So this is kind of presenting that at the minimum. What I would propose, and kind of getting ahead of ourselves, is that when we get to step 3, that we would provide a cover letter to the town council asking them to support our conclusions and recommendations and the actions that we have in there. So that to me, step 3 is to say we're making, here's our input, here's our assessment. There's a series of actions that we'd like to take, and we want the town council support on the execution of those actions, because a significant number of those actions requires town staff to support and or execute. So I think, Bray, it's not a requirement that we do it, but I think it's important to do it.
Right,
No,
but not to the third step.
That's no third step. That's a third step. Yep.
I could see it presenting it to the council for the support. Currently, we have a council membership that's supportive of our efforts. In past years, we've had town councils that if we presented it to them, it would be one more reason to see us go away. So as a document, to say going forth, these are our thoughts, and we'd like your support, to move ahead on it, and just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a separate discussion and vote on the cover letter to the town council at a future date.
Right.
Yep. So that's I've been kind of thinking about it. We need different cover letters for each one of these releases. But well, I'll leave that for a future discussion, and I'll volunteer to take a whack at a cover letter for each of these stages. All right. So there is a motion. It's been seconded. Any additional discussion? All right, let's call for a vote on the list of agencies to review the plan and the sequence in the 3 steps that we discussed in the motion. All in favor? All right, unanimous, that's good. Oh man, I'd love to say when, but I want to hold off a second on that until we go through some of the other questions. So that was the first question here. Now, going down the list from Tom, so these are from the text committee. So maybe I should turn it over, Tom, to take us through the 3 or 4 questions. The only addition I would make is to add in the criteria review as one of the questions that you didn't put there, but it's kind of, it's in there. We do need to go back and review that. So do you want to take over from the data, from the text team?
I'm ready to start kind of controlling things, and I would gladly share my screen here. So
all right, let me stop sharing so you can
share right now. Okay. And you should be seeing my the executive summary up on your screen at this point. The executive summary was a significant rewrite to it based on comments that we received since the last meeting. And so we basically kind of kept the one paragraph, this initial paragraph, as a rollover that's basically taken directly out of the introduction section of the plan. And then we basically, rather than having a summary of each of the different paragraphs, a single statement summary of each paragraph throughout the whole plan, we basically put the charter in as far as on what our requirements are as the Conservation Committee. We also put this back into the actual plan so that we understand what we're doing here relative to if we try to get this down to a executive summary. Then we went in and talked in regard to the conservation plan, describes the 7 items that we voted on a couple of months ago in regard to the proposed green belts. And then what we're basically doing here is with a response in regard to, just like completely expand the proposed green belts, and we have modification additions to the POCD are recommended. Likewise, for each of these, I just kind of went down the list as far as what the highlighted recommendations are for each of the 7 areas for our priorities. Then we put in a plug in here relative to the CIPs, because we understand that this next year will be the first time we're going up for funding. We need to put that plug in there to identify that we're going to be have an effect on the town budget next year around. And then we also just state that we've got the inventory that's required. And then we talk about generalizations of the type of areas that how we're handling our identification of proposed open spaces. We talked about the electronic tool that we developed, and that there's a separate user's manual, and that we have a total of 41 recommendations identified in the plan. The version that you saw here, what I've done from the version that was in our was in your packet, I've added in 2 areas corrections for actions that we've taken today. One is some comments that were received in regard to the inventory list. In regard to the, I've made some corrections in the subdivision areas based on communications with Michelle. And then I also, because we passed the National Fish and Wildlife Fund, I put a recommendation in there to reflect that we're supporting these areas in the future, currently and in the future. So there's a new recommendation that's coming this one up to 40, back up to 41 recommendations. So and I put a sentence back in section 3.5 to reflect the ECCD and the Wildlife Fund referencing that. So there's 2 additional references also and then this is all dated today as far as the revision number as opposed to the May version that you have in your hands from a configuration control perspective. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of got buy-in from everybody from a text team perspective, that everybody likes this revised executive summary that was just down to 2 pages. It's just focusing on the very critical things that that we're looking from an action perspective from the commission, rather than trying to talk and try to give any kind of summary of all the history and referencing stuff that we've talked about in the rest of the plan. So it's more of an a call to action rather than a true detailed summary of what's in the document.
I just had a comment.
Yes.
So I had mentioned this to Tom, and he felt we should put it in front of everybody rather than just change it. I don't even like the first sentence where it says the primary purpose for the preparation of an open space conservation plan. It implies that you need to justify your own existence. I think you could delete primary purpose for the preparation of an. If you just say the open space conservation plan stems from a critical need. You don't have to justify that whole section. Back. Yeah, get rid of and. The open space conservation plan stems from a critical need. Done.
I have no problem with that. Nobody else is not hearing any other objections. We'll make that delete. Don't make it go away.
There, you said the same thing.
Yeah.
Now you said it once.
And you'd want to see that in that also in the, because it shows up here too, in both places. Okay. Are there any other comments on the executive summary?
Yes.
I like it.
Can I,
Ray.
Ray? In the executive summary, I think that you should say somewhere that it's the town of Groton's open space conservation plan. Because you don't, somewhere along the line, there's this assumption that it's for the town of Groton. It's not the city of Groton, it's not anywhere else, but this is what the plan is. It's for the town of Groton.
Okay.
Interject that in there somewhere. My second comment is
For the town of Groton.
for the town of Groton, yes.
Yeah.
Second comment is the next section, the Conservation Commission's charter.
Right, before you go ahead, you forgot town of Groton. You just wrote town Groton.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay, the next thing about the Ray.
Thank you. The next one is this next portion of it, the charter, Conservation Commission's charter. It's a very long document. And once you've read I think of the executive summary as sort of like an abstract. Or I'm approaching it from that standpoint. And this particular portion of the plan, I would have taken and put it in the reference section, but not because as soon as you start the document, you move into the introduction, if you will. This is repeated again, almost verbatim.
Yeah.
On section 1.1, purpose of open space. And you repeat the same thing over again. I don't think we have to justify what our charter is. Yeah, and it's certainly, if you want to keep it in the document, my suggestion is to put it within the tail end of the document where there might be references or further information, something like that. That's my feeling on that section. And if I can just move on to a couple of others to mull over, and that is on the Open Space Conservation Plan identifies 7 priorities. On your first 2 priorities, instead of putting down plan of conservation development to the current plan, is to write out exactly out of the plan of conservation development. If somehow you could have 1 or 2 sentences, basically what are we talking about? And then areas of significance to the coastline, supporting Southeastern Connecticut Council and the town resiliency, you need to somewhere identify what those are. You know, what are their you know, why is our document hanging on those two particular groups. We're concerned about the environment of the coastline and what climate change is doing to them. And once you get into the document, that's where I think a lot of our, the well-written document that follows talks about climate change, sea level rise, salt marshes moving inland, things like that. And so just supporting and coming out supporting these two councils. And what happens if the council goes away next year? That the people decide to disband. And whereas if you have just a general statement in there of what, when we talk about significance to the area significant to the coastline, you know, what are we talking about? So that's number 2. And that also, number 5, presentation of native flora and fauna. In the diversity databases, you know, we support the databases. I think that that's sort of intuitive that we do, but it's only that database is only limited by what has been found in the past. And I don't know who's actively looking, especially in the northern part of the town, which is areas that we would like to expand our green break, greenway connections, looking for additional properties to connect what we already have. That database doesn't really come into play very well for what we're looking to move forward in. And so, again, put in a general statement about the preservation of native fauna and flora. You could say something about invasive species that have come in, other changes of the native flora and fauna as a result of climate change. You know, that we're concerned about what's going to happen there, and that we can minimize some of those impacts that are going on. And then the very last one, number 7, on the also besides protection of the current parks and subdivision of open spaces, that's currently what we have. But the natural resource-based outdoor recreation, we also might put in there about acquiring future spaces for parks and rec. So as has been mentioned in the past, that yes, the participation in with number of kids in town has been decreasing, but if an opportunity comes on a particular sport that they feel we need more fields for it, it would be nice to also support the master plan and looking for future properties. And so when I read through this thing quickly yesterday, support directed to Groton's Park and Rec master plan, I thought that ensuring that what they may have already now, that we protect it with some sort of caveat on top, but not saying anything about moving ahead, that if they're looking for new spaces to expand, that we support that also. And I'm happy with the rest of it. And to my part.
Okay, I've got those notes and I will come up with some words. I'm not going to try to nuke that or, make corrections at this point. I do appreciate all those comments, and we will reduce this factor down here and then expand, use the white space here to expand in these other 4 areas that you brought up here. We'll do that. I'll draft some things up and get that out to the text team for final review.
So this is, Michelle, I'd like to support what Bray said, just in general. I agree that we should be saying we're doing this for our purposes, and if these other people also agree with it, that's great. But we have a purpose that's beyond what these other organizations say. Right, Bray? Is that what you're kind of?
Exactly, exactly.
I should point out that those are extracted out of the body. So if we're going to modify that, Tom, do we go back into the body and do a?
Yeah, I'll make sure that we've got the proper words. That's why I say I'm not going to try to do it right here. Each one of these things, there's a lot of ties to them all. But I understand what Bray's talking in regard to, rather than these are, as far as the reader, a first-time reader that's not familiar with the plan, taking these things, they're kind of like, where is this coming from, or what is this? He's trying to, I think from an initial cold body reader is let's be a little bit more helpful to the reader to have a better understanding of what we're talking about here for a summary perspective.
Tom, it's Kristen, we had discussed going from the table of contents, linking directly to sections. Is there a thought of doing that up in this section as well?
As far as to,
just for ease of access, I don't know. I just didn't know if we had
I
thought
can
of that.
take a look at hyperlinking internal to the electronic document.
Just to make it easier, more usable if somebody just wants to jump to a section, they can jump right off the front, not just the index or the table of contents.
Yeah, that's doable.
Just a comment. Hey, Bruce, when you typically publish these, usually do is it a PDF, correct?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do it in a Word document.
Yeah. But the hyperlinks, do they carry forward in the PDF document?
And the references do.
Digitally.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it as a PDF, wouldn't you do it as an online document? I mean, you do it in both formats, but.
No, that's why I've asked Bruce, is that there's specific formats that they use for the town. Partly is they don't want people to be able to edit it and change it. It needs to be permanent record.
So this is Michelle. I've had my experience with putting Word into PDF. If you, depending on how you publish it, the hyperlinks do stay there. They're intact.
That's my question.
I already see that right now as far as on all the links to the references. If you go down here, you take a look at on these references and stuff. When we get into the document, there's like reference 1 here.
Oh yeah.
Hyperlink still shows up in a PDF document. It'll link you.
Yeah, I just tried it. It does. Okay.
Yeah. So I can. All right. I'll find a way to do that to meet up with what the request was in here for each of the 7 areas in the executive summary.
This is Bray. Just a quick follow-up that somebody mentioned a thought that I sort of lost track about writing the whole conservation plan. And that is that we're trying to present this to people who like the outdoors and hopefully would support open space, protection, expansion, whatever, but don't have the background. And when they look at in the complete expand proposed green breaks, and then we talk about the plan of conservation development, they may not even know what that is. So if we make, or what we have up on the screen right now, State of Connecticut Natural Diversity Database, we're all familiar with it. But if you don't deal with it, you don't even know what it is. So with just preservation of natural flora and fauna, to make a general statement about what's in the body, I think it would make an easier read and understanding to hopefully engage them so they can move forward in the document. Because if you could back up a little bit.
Yeah.
And right there, thank you. So like number 3, down a little bit, please.
Okay.
So number 3, natural waters, drinking water resources. Support is directed to Groton Utilities for future open space acquisitions to expand watersheds. That's right to the point. And it's not to a committee who's studying that or whatever, but it's a nice general statement. that gives you announcement. And then woods and carbon sequestration support is direct to better tracking of clear cutting and so forth. So there's a general statement of a concern, let's say, about that. That'll be discussed in the document. So it's a general statement. It's not always reference to particular commissions or study groups that you may not know anything about it, that particular study group. But if you read a general statement such as these, I think it better presents our document.
Hey, Bruce, I noticed that Andre has his hand raised for a comment. If you could allow him to enter the discussion.
Yeah, he can unmute himself. I think he just did.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I didn't want to insert myself into your prior discussions. Definitely respect your, your space to speak openly without any counselors interfering in your affairs. So thank you for acknowledging me. I would like to comment on your 7 points, or 7 goals, 7 goals, I should say. I would add, though, to, I believe, number 6, where you discuss natural heritage resources. And, I think it's important to highlight, here in Groton, there are significant cultural resources, especially as it relates to, Native American ceremonial landscapes. If you go through, you hike in really any corner in Groton, you'll come across various cairns and standing stones and ceremonial walls and stone chambers. And it's a very fascinating history. And I think it's important to highlight that in any open space plan, that when we have these resources, but they ought to be protected. So I think in all, there is a need to better address those really cultural resource identification and preservation directly within those plans. And obviously the importance of communicating with our surrounding tribes as to how to best identify those sites and preserve them in perpetuity.
I appreciate that, and I can do a little bit more. That's one area that we have not really, in the document itself, done a very good explanation of, and I will take an action item to expand on what's in the document and also make sure that we highlight this area also.
It's Kristen. I just wanted to say to Andre, I do believe that we have, if you go further into the document, we have addressed that. It's not like it's not in there at all. It's just not heavily implicated, but it's further down in the document.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kristen. And I look forward to reading it in its entirety. And thank you all for your hard work on this. It's very important work, irrespective of whether or not it's required to produce the document. I think it's still, great that we're doing that. So thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you. All right, back to the question on the executive summary. Other additional comments? All right, Tom, you want to take it to the next question?
The next one was, does the commission agree with the updated Greenbelt map? Which I'll bring that up here.
Page 38.
Yeah. Let me see if I can scrunch this to the right size here. Okay. What we've done here is since the last version, we took comments last time. We did the splits over here on starting in the northeast quadrant where we started our discussions in the past. We still have the downtown Mystic connection area that we have to kind of sort through here relative to the coastal walkway. Then we had the split that we discussed last time relative to the central green belt. There's really no changes in this area. However, on the western side, we did significant changes. We put some pink areas in here relative to, identifying areas. We took a look at over here using the Shinnecock golf course, the Avery Point, and with the potential areas to take a look at in here relative to areas in Groton City. We redirected, last time we saw that we kind of came up here and went over to connect to the New London side. We've redirected that coming out of the little bit northerly portion of here and used the Antonio properties that are in here with Avalonia, and then to try to come up with and use some of the town properties over here that's already in trying to link up here with the new Sealy School property areas as an alternative here. Looked like a little bit less impact. And then lastly, we also identified taking a look at the Nature's Network and everything in regard to the corridors, is that they've identified a corridor going over to Montville through the submarine base area that's a very highly desirable area, and putting that as it's not something that we need to do right now, but a potential area to be taking a look at, connecting the two town areas here, which is one here is at the Nautilus overlook, and then up in here into the area up in just north of the Gunjewamp area, because this is Gunjewamp Road right in here that I've got my hand on. This is all, the state owns all of this area right in here. And then we've got the desires in the past, they're already in the POCD here. That's why this is a light yellow, light green and striped. That's a POCD, a previously identified area. And so we're just connecting this for the, based on the review for the area for the Nature's Network corridor areas, and so just to be kind of consistent. So that was the one area that we, two major changes in here relative, or the three changes all on the western corridor that we did basically after reviewing the document from last time. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on board with those and is supportive.
I have a comment or two. This is Michelle.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I like it. I tried, one of the things that I was working on with the data team was to try to identify the parcels that we would need to have in order to fill this in. And I know part of them are already on our list, but some aren't. And so as I'm trying to do that, one of my issues was, for instance, if you go to the farthest on the eastern side, the one that's kind of in the middle on the eastern side, I mean, that goes through most, like the bottom part of it, it goes through a development. It's little houses. There's no way we could turn that into part of the green belt. So there's little places. You see what I'm talking about, Tom? It's right about where your cursor is. So yeah. So there's no you can't even pick parcels there that would make that possible. Yeah.
Well, this was one of the areas that I was, kind of confused on in the past, and I have no problem getting out of this because I can argue this multiple ways. One was that we're supposed to be, from a big picture town perspective, is that people have been talking in regard to, starting up here, somewhere up in here and being able to walk to downtown Mystic, which is what you're really trying to do, is that from a recreational perspective, we want to have that walkway, but the flip side of it is that from an animal, corridor way,
right,
there's no way you can do it, and that's why I guess to some degree why the coastal walkway starts here and goes south only. Going north is too hard, so maybe we should take this out. I have no problem with that. I was just trying to have a continuous eastern coast, but I can say we can do this as our eastern. We just have two spurs coming up and take this out. I have no problem with taking this out.
Well, I think you're making a good point that says there's walkable and there's wildlife corridors.
Right.
And the wildlife could care less whether you built there or not. And I know the emphasis has been on walkable corridors. We're trying to make it both.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, I'm going to throw this out. I don't even like it because it complicates things. You know, is there a way to differentiate walkable versus wildlife corridors? You know, that might make it too complicated, but.
Well, this is where we run into a problem where we've got multiple priorities in our list. You know, from a 3.5 perspective for preservation of flora and fauna, you want a corridor that's, you know, just totally open, nothing, no trails, no nothing. If you want a really good corridor, to some degree, you can argue that everything from the interstate exit at Allen Street all the way down here to Route 117 is a great animal corridor because there's no human people touching it. Okay, but how do you do that corridor is a problem. You know, there's a very few ways to get into that corridor. That's to come out. You know, I'm looking at, you know, if I wanted the really best corridor to get over here to New London is have people walk down the middle of the interstate in here somehow and then get over to here is how I originally was starting to look at this thing. But you know, when you try to start walking down the middle of I-95, you know, we have a unique situation here in Groton, the fact that we have such a wide corridor on the interstates. The problem is, how do you get to them? To a large degree, but they do provide an outstanding habitat, you know, east-west corridor from a greenbelt perspective. They're there, but if that's, you know, and what are we defining ourselves as greenbelts is for wildlife as well as for trails. You know, you take a look at, you know, the Candlewood Hill area right in here. You know, there's a nice trail that does this as well as animals. So you're doing both. You're doing the wildlife management perspective, and there's trails that have been cut over the years that do these almost this identical path is already trailed today. So it's a matter, and likewise over here on, you know, we have essentially the trails for the Candlewood Ridge with GOSA and their Avery Farm properties. This is already in existence. How do you get across 184? That's where the rubber meets the road, and I don't know. It's almost to some degree I should be putting a pink spot over here in regard to how do we make this happen. So
Can I comment on the? It's Kristen again over by the Mystic, just north of town, south of 95. That area. The fact that it's right there. The fact that it's dotted, I think we should not take it away. Because some of those properties are, I think, a little bit spacious with like a lot of lawn and stuff, and they may well be underwater in a few years anyway, so they might not be so habitable, and so it'll just become, you know, corridor when the water recedes anyway. But I would keep it there because it kind of connects all that stuff together.
Can I make a comment? This is Bray.
Yeah.
You brought up, Larry brought up a point that I really like, that this map represents both walking trails as well as wildlife corridors.
Mm-hmm.
And the map that Tom has done is really good because even though it has dots on it, I really support the concept that these are, River Road is a scenic road and runs right along the Mystic River. So that, in a sense, with this designation as a scenic road, puts a great deal of limitations on what can happen to that road. And one is to increase traffic flow and so forth on that road by widening it or something like that. That's they can't do that under the scenic road ordinance. And these are not, it's not stamped in stone for the map. I think it's a wonderful plan of fine tuning what began in 1969 with the original map. The one thing for Tom that I would ask on the map is in the upper right hand side, right there, back to the green, just to the left. If you were to take the pink area coming from the Mystic River, that little dotted trail with its pink.
This one here?
And instead of connecting it to the green line, connect it to the right to the light green, which is the Wells property, the town-owned property that goes all the way to Ledyard. You know, is it possible from there as maybe another dot indicator of another access up?
Oh, having another dotted line up in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's wet areas up in Ledyard that would connect in with some of the stream corridors that are up there. So as a wildlife corridor, that would also be that one versus the one through Deerfield.
So you're saying something like that?
Yeah, that could work. One of the big problems that we've always had is field crest below where we're just talking about, where the yellow dots and green line going through field crest. That's always been a challenge because that is prime land by the soils experts. And that's where they built houses, I guess, in the 1940s, as they did in Quantic Ridge. And so that sort of took over a great corridor. It would have been nice to have more open space through there. But so we've always had the challenge of how do we get around it to go north. From Pequot Woods, we run right into it, and then we can pick up some trails that you've nicely showed at the top of the town. Because we don't know what's happening with Holdridge. I'm sorry, Whittles Farm. We don't know where that's going in the future. Are they going to dig the whole thing up for stone and gravel? Or are they only going to do sections of it? You know, who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that's this whole green area here.
Yes. Yep. But the way it is now, I think you've made a very good attempt at presenting where we are and where we want to go forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah, I'll just move this other little dot up here. Okay. Okay, then moving on. Our next topic was supposed to be the already had us here, was to take a look at, does the commission agree with the draft open space protection ordinance? In the prior version, I had built into an appendix that talked about regard to the ordinance, and so in your packet we had the we included the draft ordinance, and I think let me go back here and bring that up. 1 second here.
While you're doing that, so this is, Michelle, was the intention to actually have that ordinance in the plan?
No, we took it out.
Okay.
It was put in as an action item.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that it was. I just wanted, so that's not also, it's not staying in the plan, right? It's a separate.
No, we took it out of the plan, and
Okay.
it now is a separate document by itself.
Perfect.
There's a recommendation. We took it and reduced it down to just a recommendation that, as far as that the town consider an open space ordinance similar to what you have like in Chester and stuff.
So I was wondering, where did you get this from?
The city of Chester, Connecticut.
Okay.
All I did was I changed from the town of Groton, or from the town of Chester to the town of Groton, and they didn't have a conservation commission. They had a combined inland wetlands environment, and so I updated that.
So they actually passed this there?
Oh yeah, this is a posted,
wow, that's pretty cool.
approved ordinance.
That's awesome.
It's got a lot of legal review behind it, and it's very minor changes here, just for the structurally relative to calling the right commissions and that type of stuff together, and in regard to what what the requirements are. But that's a come way, by taking this out of the plan and just making this a recommendation, it's a standalone document that it's not part of our plan. It's just that we made a recommendation. That was the comments that I took from everyone that I received from after the last meeting. And so, but I think we need to, agree that it's not directly part of the plan. It's going to be a standalone document. And that's why I'm asking the question tonight. Did everybody agree with me taking it out from the last version?
Can I make a
This is
comment?
Michelle. Yes, I absolutely agree that it doesn't belong there.
I agree with Michelle. It doesn't belong. And I wonder how much of this document already exists in the town's regs.
When I went through all the town regulations, none of this is in here.
For open space?
I went through the complete list of all the town ordinances. There is no reference to anything that's talked about in here. This is all brand new stuff.
Wow.
And that's one of my reasons to be pushing for this, is that when we take a look at the biggest factor in my viewpoint here is that when we take a look at as administration, we now talk about that we clearly make the Parks and Recreation responsible, that we, the Conservation Commission, will work with Parks and Rec directly to take a look at their stewardship plans. And then we also put into document what are the allowed usage on the open space. Right now, it's a free-for-all out, literally a free-for-all out there. Okay.
Yeah, I think the connection to the stewardship section, which we kind of delayed,
Right.
it does go hand in hand, and it kind of reinforces and supports it. So I think that's kind of how it all comes together, Tom. So I support this in the context of the stewardship, I guess, proposal that we're working on. So to me, it's part of that.
Yeah, but this would be a separate action that when you talk about going to the town council with our final plan, this would be one of the things that we could say here, here's what we're going to be working with the staff. We'll have the staff review this, submit it to you for action and stuff as a future activity. But it's not, we've taken it out of the plan here to get the plan continuing along.
Yeah, I think
this would be a separate discussion, for a month, next month or the following month in regard to, I'm not trying to go in the discussion on here, but just to let people know. Okay?
Yeah, while other people are reviewing our plan, we can talk about this.
Yeah, right.
This is right. There's a lot of stuff that's on this thing that I have a problem with, and having worked with, for instance, Pequot Woods and a little bit with a Cobb property, those are two large open spaces that we have. As far as a lot of what's in this document that says no, 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 it seems to me that we're already doing it. For instance, Cobb property had problems with vehicles driving in on the property, and they addressed it by closing off entrance points and things like that. And I don't know within the Parks and Rec, what their, how legally they can keep cars, random cars out, if you will, or pickup trucks. In other words, what's the rulings that they're working with that no motorized, watercraft, no boats. We don't have any ponds big enough for boats, motorized boats. But there was one in here that I thought was very interesting. And this is, if you want to go down to number P.
Which one?
Next page.
Oh, P? Okay, excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Letter P.
Yeah, got it.
The person shall hunt, molest, harm, frighten. That means that no dogs. Nobody can walk their dogs on the property. leash or on off leash, to me. So
Yeah, because the dog's frightened, right?
yeah, that the dogs would frighten wildlife out there. So, you know, if we take it verbatim, what's on this and
Yeah.
with any discussion, this is, you know, free roaming dogs are prohibited. I want to watch somebody from Parks and Rec sit out there every night and making sure that there aren't any gang of dogs getting together and running through the open space property. It's okay, it's through somebody's neighborhood, but it can't be through the open.
Well, I mean, we do have leash laws in effect now. It's supposed to be on leashes, right? Oh, and some of them say under control, right? I admit that. But I think those are the kind of discussions we can have in the details of it. I think the question Tom has now is the concept of an open space ordinance something we want to address and include, although not at this point in time?
You know, because the last version from last month, this was actually an appendix and
Right.
proposal and stuff. And so, based on the comments, I took it out. I just want to make sure that everyone's okay with that. We took this thing out, and that's why I just wanted to get a second confirmation on that. And I just, but I did make it. I did keep the recommend. If I go back down here to the recommendations for open space for policy, is that we did have a let's see, education for open space. Yes, it's right in here is that we have a short-term coordinate with the town council or establishment open space protection ordinance that provides for implementation of mandated stewardship management plans for designated properties, establish an open space steward, and provides detailed regulation and prohibited activities on open space properties as outlined in section 6.41. Going back up to 6.41, we talk about the protection of open space. A comparison of local open space protection ordinances revealed the only protection currently in place for Groton open space is found in the blight ordinance. The town of Cheshire, Connecticut has implemented a very comprehensive open space protection ordinance, and the Conservation Commission has drafted similar ordinance for consideration of the town council. Adoption of such an ordinance would be clearly demonstrated commitment of the town towards a detailed regulation of prohibited activities on their open spaces and mandate implementation of stewardship management plans for designated properties, along with establish a collateral duty open space steward as part of the Parks and Recs department. So that's the response that I put together from last month's discussion. Right. That's what I'm basically looking for here, rather than
and the details
we
can hash out. Yeah.
Right, and this is all that's going to be in the plan. Would be those this paragraph.
So Bray, does that address your concern? Because I think we all had the same. I think all of us had the same concern of trying to bite off too much with an ordinance at this point.
Yes, I agree with you with what you're saying, and I just sort of in retrospect think that this would be part of a management plan, and I would also very much want to have a conversation, you know, as we adopt this sort of thing, that with if how much Parks and Rec wants to take on, or how much do they feel is already out there, if not in an ordinance format, I don't know what else format there might be. But I agree with you that this should be lifted away from the document and to be reviewed later, because I agree with Tom that if there isn't anything out there on do's and don'ts with open space at the present time that anybody can refer to, whether it's Parks and Rec Department or the Planning Department, on uses of the town-owned open space, that an ordinance, open space ordinance, then perhaps is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, Parks and Recs has established, like at the Cop property, they have their own rules for the dog park. There's their own rules, and they post them, the specific rules for that particular location that were developed by the park. You know, I assume that it went through the Parks and Rec commission, approving, for the department perspective. And I have no problem with that. And that's, I think, but there's other areas of the town, such as the Joel property, there are 75 acres that's just lying there fallow that nobody's doing anything with, okay? It's not showing up, and so what I'm trying to do is that I think as the advocates for open space here through this plan, need to be working with the Parks and Recs folks in regard to, for the open space portions of what they're dealing with, that are not, if they're already taking things that are in a park and it's facilitized and they're running the show, fine, but somebody's got to be worrying about these other spaces too, and how that they're being properly stewarded, and what's the town doing with them to make sure that the bases aren't taking them over, that they're still, if there's trails out there that are available, or that at least somebody's looking and doing a boundary walk and it's not being encumbered. We have a basic stewardship responsibilities that I think as a town are not being met today.
Yep. All right. So I think we're in agreement, and we got to do a lot more work on stewardship, and this is part of it. So I don't think I heard anyone disagreeing with the current approach we're doing with an ordinance and with stewardship, separating it out, putting it later, taking it out of this document today. Is that fair? Okay.
Okay, appreciate
it. Those
are the three questions I brought. And then you said we wanted to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, the other thing in the text was the criteria update.
The criteria, it shows up in Appendix C here. Right here. Criteria for review of open space.
Yeah, now there's a couple. I mean, I kind of tried to, I think to start with, I tried to relate the updated plan with the fact that there were some redundancies. You then took a whack at it and changed the point structure, which is this. Right. And then we also have one, let's see, do we have it? What did I do with that, Ann? That took a slightly different view with, let's see, where's numbers? Let me bring that up. Come on, there it goes. All right, so you have this approach.
I can stop sharing here.
Yeah, versus, and I think, let's see how we want to do this.
Yeah, just for everybody else's consideration, when I put it in the draft, and this particular draft was my suggestion to Larry based on the action item that he gave to everybody at our last meeting. And so this is the Tom Olson version. I didn't know what Larry, I had not received anything from Larry or from anybody else, so I just updated it. It was my simplification of the criteria.
No, that's fine. I mean, so there's basically, I think, I don't want to speak for Ann, but I will. How's that, Ann? So, so there's two major things she suggested. One was basically this is the point structure that I kind of started with, that was then modified by Tom. And her observation was, well, maybe we should do a rating scale of 1 to 5 to keep the same proportions, as I believe you did.
Actually, can I just make a point? So
yep,
if
go ahead.
you use the max, so my understanding, Tom, I didn't realize this, who had suggested this, but if you use the max, what I'm calling the max point method, and you put all 8s for the max point of 8 for criteria number 1, it doesn't actually rank order that, it doesn't weight it. If you look at the right here column, the max point column E, and the percentages, it doesn't put them in a rank order. So if each of those 3 got the maximum number of points, you're not actually getting the weight that you want for the green belts. So there's 2 approaches that you can take. You can either have equal number of, this is a result of the fact that you have unequal number of questions in each of the categories. So you can either have force yourself to have 6 questions in each category, and then there's no longer a need to weight them. Or, well, actually, if you do a binary yes, no, which I know, Larry, you thought that wasn't going to fly. So the other way to do it is a weighted average. And that's what using an average for each category, and then using the same rating system. The other thing, so using a rating system of 1 to 8 for green belts and 1 to 7 for coastline and 1 to 6. I don't know about anyone else, but that gives me a headache to try and figure out how I would rate, each of the 8 categories with a different rating scale. And there's a lot of bias that will come in play. So having the same rating scale for each of the categories, I think, is really important. So if you did an average and then apply a weight, then you'll see a very nice rank order on the right there. It's in column U, way to the right. Right there.
Okay, that's the result. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have 19, 16, 14, 12, 9, 7, 5. So you get the kind of weighted. So if you were using the maximum number of points in each of the categories and with a different weight, then you get the appropriate amount of the rank order that you wanted.
It's following the same structure, just a little bit more scientific in terms of providing the weighting, making it easier to, I guess, manage the prioritization. Is that a fair summary?
Prioritization and also the rating of using the same scale.
Yeah, I mean, but essentially it's the same scale, Tom, that you started with. It just kind of manipulated the numbers to allow it to be, let's say, adjusted back and forth. But it comes out in this column here. You can see the percentages in V, I guess it is, that it comes out very close to the weighting that we started with, and that's where we started with. What do we wanted to weight each one of these 8 plus the 9 special one, right? That we had.
So could I ask a question?
Yeah.
To clarify. So basically what you're saying is if a number has only 3 items, then each one of those is like getting a 33% weighting, whereas if a number has 6 items, they're only getting like 12.8% or whatever. So the more items in a category, the smaller the weight that each walks away with. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that my point about the number of questions had more to do with using a max point approach, that it doesn't take into account that you only have 3 questions versus 6 questions somewhere else. So even if you put the maximum number of points in,
and we're saying the same thing in a different way. I think it's like the more.
Probably. I didn't do the math to know whether it was 33%. Yeah.
Well, it's not quite, guys, because some of these you can't get all 3 because it's either within 300 or 600. So it's not quite 1 for 1. Yeah. But
if it's parcel as part of the green belt, then it's also within 300 feet. And
you could get 2. Yes. No, that's a fair point.
Makes it even worse, though, because then the maximum points that you could get in that category is 16, and that would be even less, because you want that one. That's our highest priority.
Yep.
So if you want the highest score from that category to be reflected as having come out on top. Otherwise, this isn't going to reflect our.
It's not objective. It's intrinsically biased because of the point stacking, right? Not biased, but intrinsically unequal, or it's going to send you in a direction.
Well, it's unequal questions. Because there's a different rating system for each and a different number of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you want to flip to the other spreadsheet I sent you, the other worksheet, I don't know if it's up at the top.
The spreadsheet, or that you showed me some spider diagrams.
Oh yeah, no, the second worksheet that's a totally different approach up here.
The alternative approach, the one that's...
Oh, alternative approach. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
okay.
This is just a total rework of the entire thing, and take it or leave it. It's just food for thought. This actually puts the same number of questions in each of the categories where you, I guess my other question too is, if you're rating a green belt, is the only thing that we really want to know about it, it's where it's located. Do we want to know other attributes as well? So, you know, this is it's just in a different order, but it doesn't matter, but it's binary. So it's either a yes or no. And then it's very straightforward. There's no, you have to, the thing here is that the questions need to be written so that you can answer it yes and no. And that's sometimes a bit hard. They're just different ways of doing it. And then the visualizations was a different piece that is, sometimes it's just really easy when, especially if you're going to be comparing, you know, 6 or 7 properties, that if you have like a radar plot, you can quickly see that one has a higher score in greenbelt over natural resource recreation, and vice versa, depending on how it's scored.
I think my concern with this one is it kind of changes the part, because we had the priorities of, for example, green belt being number 1. All right. And that's what we agreed to in our last session.
It's in a different order.
You can change the order though.
Yeah, we can change.
Well, no, it's still, but you still wind up with
I
a
see.
sub-score of 6,
Right.
6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So based upon the number of questions, it doesn't give me a higher weight.
No, but because they're all the same, especially when you graph it, you can see whether, this kind of eliminates the whole weighting piece.
Yeah, you'd have to weight it in addition to
You know what the priorities are, right? We know what the 7 priorities are. So yeah, it's just, can you kind of switch to the radar plot or spider plot just to.
That I got to bring up.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. It's just different ways of doing it.
Can I just interject here, Bray?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this conversation because I have to think about what everybody is saying. And I think if it's going to be in our document, having a list of criteria and then a little bit of a point to keep it simple.
Yeah, simpler the better, I think.
Simpler the better. I mean, this is a great exercise, maybe in the planning department or somewhere else, but for our document, the sake of the folks that we want to read this document and get engaged in it, I think this is going to blow them away, especially if you go into the 1s and 0s. I haven't worked with that before.
Put those plots back. Those look really cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the heck it went. Stop sharing. Where's my sharing thing?
That's really interesting.
We see it right now.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying. I'm trying to find it. What are you seeing?
The email I sent.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was looking for. What the heck happened to it? There it is. Okay. So, like I said, there's 2 different things. One was presentation, and the other one was, how you come up, the weighting and the other structure. So when I looked at the presentation, when I went, I've used these before, and I think it makes things a lot more visible. So I think there's a benefit for this in terms of the result of the analysis, unless you have a weighting, unless you take the weighting one and do your radar chart of the weighting one. Did you do that in any of these?
Well, the bottom one two are the really simple binary, and each of them have the same number of questions. And whether you want your economic one in there or separate is a different discussion. But so that was 1 to 5 or 6. I guess none of them I scored that way. But this one up here, if you scroll up, this is
this one.
Oh, yeah.
So Greenbelt coastline.
Interesting.
No, but this is like a random, I don't know. I have to go back and look to see what I actually put in, but I think this was just an example of an arbitrary, I just went put arbitrary numbers in, just as a visualization that you can see that Greenbelt, very quickly. So these are 2 different rating systems that I put in, the left and the right. And so that visually you can see immediately that the one on the right has several of your highest priority, higher scores in the higher priority categories.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have this one doesn't have the economic model input, which
for that one. Yeah.
It's over this one. Yeah. I mean, I think there's value to having this as a visualization of the output. But if I go back to, this is the, you got to keep bouncing back and forth. So let me go back to your spreadsheet.
I hope you can't hear my cat meowing.
There we go. Okay, now back to the spreadsheet. So we do have to come up with, so this is, these 2, right?
Yeah.
My bias is more on this one.
Yep.
Than on this one.
Yep.
Is we did spend a lot of time here in getting the weighting between the 9, basically 9, and we had special added numbers, which got lost a little bit here, but this does provide a way of evening it out. And then the visualization of this is a different discussion. So let's throw it out. Is that first we had, I guess we were, to the left. Let me get the columns up. We were C through E is what we came into this meeting with. So in order to make some progress here is that we have 3 different options. 2 options to modify this chart, or going to an alternate approach entirely, which kind of goes to a different questions, 1s and 0s on a specific question. So in order to sort that, can I get a sense of kind of sticking with this a bit, or a switch to a different approach? What's your sense out there, guys?
This is Tom Olson. I'd like to just kind of say, let's kick this can down the road a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I would propose here for this next version that we're going to send out to people is that I just take this thing out of the plan and put this as a discussion for the user's manual, okay, which we can control internally and we're not sending out for review by anybody.
Mm.
Okay, because that's where this detail really belongs.
That's a really interesting idea.
Is currently being maintained, and I think whether we can leave this as if I take this out of the plan, because it just references that there's a criteria that we use for objective. I already if I go back to the plan in the appendix C of my plan here. If you go up there, I just have, we talk a little bit about objective components and then open space weighting criteria. It's just generic enough that we can, and I can make sure that I even take, it just says that the economics value is 40% with special considerations. So I could just tweak on those words and then take this thing out And that way, at least we have this, and we can kick this can down the road to next month to talk about what's going to be in the user's manual. Because I got to think about this. I hadn't seen any of this before. I appreciate Ann really did a great job here trying to put alternatives together, which I really appreciate. These are a lot more detailed. I was looking for the quick and dirty way out, but I can see where that from an analysis perspective, which would be appropriate for the user's manual, that any one of Ann's is better than what I did.
Look, what about a compromise to that? Is I think it's useful to talk about maybe column C, which in other words, these are the elements and not necessarily get into any of this.
I agree.
I'm kind of following up what you said, Tom, and leave the weighting and the mechanisms for the user manual. But I think it's important to say, guys, the first priority was number one, right? Complete and, because we say that in the text.
Yeah.
And what we mean by that, this does provide some background. So I would be okay with that kind of separation, and then leaving the mechanical, mathematical formulas, for the follow-on, because we still got to get all the data together. We'll get to the data team in a bit.
Right.
So I don't know. Let me throw that out as an adjustment to your suggestion, Tom.
I have a hand up.
Hand up. Michelle has her hand up.
So I hadn't really thought about the question, and I'm just thinking about it now, is what purpose does it serve to even have this in here at all? And Larry, I kind of hear what you say, but the fact is it is in the text. So do we need this to since we're not going to use it for the plan. We're not going to run any properties through this. We're not, and I think we already say in the text that these are the important things. We can make sure they're covered, but I'm kind of leaning towards Tom. I'm not sure that we need this in here at all.
Or is it valuable to get feedback on just column C? Is that what you were saying, Larry? To have that out and none of the math. I would think that might be really valuable. And then
for the feedback purposes, but not for the final.
I'm sorry?
No, for the feedback, which saying as we put it out there, people will say, well, that's dumb, but you should consider this. I mean, you get some feedback on, like I said, column C, which are because the 1 through 9 are in there, or 1 through 8 are in there in text, but we don't have, A, B, C, and we don't have this next level of detail just to provide a little more explanation of what we meant by number 1.
Well, but should it, if that detail can be in the text?
Two different questions. Put it in and then how you put it in. All right.
Can I,
Go ahead.
I agree with keeping column C in, eliminating the rest for a different document, the tools document, whatever. Having read other towns' plan of conservation, they have listed their criteria. We've had discussions in previous years looking at this about what criteria do we need to have in order to support a particular piece of property, why we want it. And we reviewed other people's criteria and liked certain towns' criteria more than others. So I think putting this out there is good to include in the document because it lets folks know where we are on this criteria for open space.
Other comments? I think I heard is this 3-3 split. So I think.
I'm okay with leaving column C in for now.
All right, that makes it 4-3. Okay, so we'll move on.
There's only 6 of us.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
So it's 4-2, not 4-3.
What did I say? Oh, I said 4-3. I was thinking 3-3, and I meant 4-3. Yeah, I always can count on you, Michelle, to keep me honest. Okay, so Tom.
Yes, I need direction.
So the direction is that we will defer to it. Probably the user manual, which has the economic model, can now also have the detailed criteria, which I think it might anyway already.
Yes, it does.
So that is where we could put that, but we would retain, let's call it the essence of column C, and how to put that into the text would be left to the text committee. Is that enough direction?
Yeah, I can take out all the points and all that kind of stuff and just say the criteria. I'll just leave the appendix in there in the page, but take out the point system stuff.
They got the point system. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Good.
That.
Now we're on to. I'd like to see if I can get everybody out shortly. Not go too late tonight. But we're now into the data team. So are we okay on the text team?
Yes.
Okay. So on the data team, so there is information, Michelle, let's see, let me bring up your latest.
Yes, I don't know if you want to bring up the version that's in the, we probably want to use what's in the agenda. That was the PDF version.
The agenda version or the one that you sent me last night? Because that was a little bit later.
Well, let's talk about the one that's in the agenda first, since that's what people saw in the agenda.
Okay, hold on. Let me bring that up. Let's see, Acrobat. There we go. Okay. Whoops. So.
Right, so if we go to the very end, it's the last few pages of the agenda. I'll explain what that is. So
okay, so those are the pages.
Yep. I gave everybody a preview of that last week. And basically, one of the things that I did was I took, can you make that bigger, Larry? Well, I have it too, but I don't know if people can see it or not.
Hold on.
It breaks down the open space into a number of categories. And I tried to be somewhat consistent with what's listed in the POCD. And so, we start off with the city. And if you want to start off with well, I'll just go through it real quick, Larry, if you want to start with the city and point out that one of the things.
Whoops. Sorry.
No, keep going.
My finger got, where am I going here? Oh.
You went too far.
Yeah.
There we go. Holy moly. All right. There's the town.
Okay. So if you look at the city first, let me just explain what's in the city.
There we go.
Okay. So in the POCD, and so what I tried to sort of explain before, I took the map from the POCD document itself that had listed the dedicated open space, the managed open space, and the facilities, and I went in and tried to identify each of the properties from that map. So the column that's a 2016 DMF. That's what that is. Those are what I could identify on the POCD's map, that how they labeled those three types of properties. And so one of the things is the utilities was interesting because it's the town utilities land, it's that watershed, but it says the city owns it. Okay, so I have the city into two pieces. The top ones that are actually planned already open space that's physically in the city limits. But then there's that whole other bunch of stuff, the 1,200 acres or almost 1,300, that's the watershed property. So that's all what's in the city. So in the summary at the bottom, I have those two separate. And then the next part is the state, and so now we get to a combination of what was in the POCD, what was in the other earlier documents that Jenna gave us for the maps, plus whatever else I found scrounging around on the GIS. So, and again, there's possible that things are missing. And one thing that's definitely not here is the airport, because I didn't even think about that until I saw it in the text. So now you can keep scrolling. So this is state stuff. I hope is kind of obvious. That's what the state owns, right? So we can
Does
keep
the state-
going.
Michelle?
Yes.
Does the state own Fort Griswold? I
That's
didn't
what
know
it said on the map.
that. Huh. I thought it was town owned. I'm sorry.
So basically, I literally every single parcel on here, I checked out, and so I captured the addresses and the owners.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So there's one and there's some comments like I have the comments. This stuff's on our list. There's a couple of things. There's one thing that doesn't say the state owns it yet, but it's basically. That's what's there. So you can scroll through that, and then that gives the total for the state. And then keep going. Larry?
Yep, I know. I was making a note.
Hey,
I write down what you say.
Real quick, I saw the Gunjiwamp Wildlife Management Areas. Did you find it actually listed that way someplace from the state? Because I haven't. It's just everything.
Yeah. Yes, that's what it says. What I don't remember if I saw that on the map or from what you listed. Now that I think about it.
Okay.
I have that name. Yeah, I think that might be from what you said.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm trying to verify. I thought I found it, but I haven't been able to recover where this is a wildlife management area yet. This is a
right, but the pins are all there. So the pins.
I think that they own the property. It's just a matter of what they name it.
Right. So I can't remember if I got that from you. That I might have typed that in. If it's capital letters, I copied and pasted it. If it's not capital letters, I might have typed it or got it from somewhere else.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then there's the town open space then is basically what the POCD called dedicated open space. That was the D's. Anything that had a D, even if we wouldn't consider it that way. If the POCD had it as a D, it's in this section. And then other stuff that are basically things that are mostly land and not buildings. Okay, and like playgrounds, I think is not in here unless the state had it as a D. So this is all the stuff. And again, we can change what we call these things, but I'm giving you my logic for what I put in that category. And then that's all the town-owned stuff that's dedicated. And then the next one, the town-owned recreational facilities or what the POCD called managed space. So some of the things that are in the open space you might think should be in the managed, and that's fine. But these are things that are, the memorials, the stuff that's specifically a playground or whatever, or things that the POCD had as an M. And then the next one down is facilities, it's other stuff. So it's the sewer authority stuff, anything that that the POCD had as an F. So that's the schools are there for the most part. Those kind of things are all in that. And then if you keep going past that, and there's a lot of stuff that are little things that I didn't try to verify. I'm guessing they're just, right of ways and those kind of things.
All these little ones, yep.
Yeah. And then the next part is the quote unquote private owned. It's the Avalonia, Gosa. That's where I put the Groton Long Point Association stuff, Tom.
Okay.
And there's like the Peace Sanctuary and those kind of things. And some of that stuff is in the POCD as managed, like the Groton Long Point is in there as managed. And then some of the stuff is in there as dedicated and some is not in there at all. And so I cross-referenced with the POCD on that. And then the next layer is all the farm and forest. And that's the stuff that was in the farm and forest layer that I got from Jenna. And I don't know that there's any that I got from anywhere else but there, but some of that is in a couple things were also in the POCD. And it's like the Birch Plain, which was the golf course, but I guess it's now for sale. So that's what that category is, and that's where a lot of stuff that's on our list is in this category. And in fact, the list that's not on here yet, because I just put it together yesterday, as I was talking about earlier, as I was going along the proposed greenways and pulling up what parcels we would need to do that completion, most of those parcels are the farm and forest stuff. So if you scroll down, keep scrolling through there, another list that we have that's not in here because we didn't want it public was the rest of our wish list that's personal property and that's not farm and forest.
You want me to, let me switch to the other document.
Wait, don't go there yet because we want to
okay.
put the numbers, okay?
Okay, well, all right, I have the numbers there too.
I know, but as long as we're right here.
Okay.
And so when I put together the numbers, and Larry added a different kind of number, but the ones that are in here, again, I wanted to explain what's in the package. So the first set of numbers is if it includes that all that watershed property that's in the city, but it's the town watershed. So the first set of numbers includes that because that's a lot of acres, obviously. And then the second set of numbers takes that out of there.
Wait, I just the terminology of watershed, it bothers me a little bit.
Okay.
This is when you mean with watershed, that you mean with the Groton Utilities properties.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the stuff that's with the stuff that takes care of my drinking water.
Right. Okay, but it's not the because the watersheds. There's a separate map that has this is the watersheds and all this type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. This is yes. For this purposes, and I might have used maybe there's another term that's better, but it's basically the properties that are owned because they're around the Groton utility water.
Right.
Yeah, and they wind up here under city utilities, the way she's got it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, question, Bray, is the city utilities, does that include more than the water lands that the city owns?
No, this was just
Oops.
on the map. It was just all the stuff that literally was connected to the water.
Right. So I agree with Tom that if you said city utilities instead of watershed, because I agree with him that those
Okay.
conflicting terms.
So
Okay,
these here, you're saying.
Yes.
Yes, so watershed. That was kind of my shorthand, but if it's confusing to people, well, this wouldn't be in what we show everybody else anyway. I mean, this is for us to talk about.
This is the raw data.
Just to explain what's in there, but I can certainly get rid of that word.
All right, let me go to.
So, and while you're doing that, so one of the questions that we have is that appendix that's in the document, that's basically our inventory. What do we want to put in there? I mean, this spreadsheet is obviously turning into our inventory, but what aspect of that and how do we want to put that information into the document? Okay.
This is Tom Olson, just so I understand. So you feel that you've got a complete, this spreadsheet represents all town property, right?
And we keep finding a little bits and pieces here and there,
Yeah.
but the intent is for it eventually to include everything in the town that is considered open space of any kind.
I know that's what our goal is to get at, but this list has a lot more stuff that would not normally be meeting our criteria of our definition of protected open space.
Well, that's
Yeah,
why
different.
right. But that's the point. This is every possible connotation of open space. And then we need to take this, so then there's a subset of the stuff that we would consider true open space or protected, but what list or what parts of the list go into the document? And
Well, I think there's two things. One is once we go through and we talk about where you have what's open space and what's not, some is protected. Somewhere in here you have protected and not
some of them
protected.
I started to add the protected on there. That's not complete.
Oh, come on.
Michelle, did you mention what your color coding was? I'm sorry if I missed it.
Well, the color coding doesn't have a whole lot of meaning.
Okay.
But the parts that do, so the color coding, the one that has the meaning is the CC list. I made all those things blue.
Yep.
But the color coding is inside. It's mostly things that are connected. So in other words, the Avery Farm Nature Preserve, I put those in a color because they're two properties or two parcels, but they belong together.
Okay.
So most of that's the reason. The stuff, the highlighted pins is an artifact of how I was finding things.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the point she was making is, for example, this one, potentially developable according to the town. That's not protected. But today it's quote open space, right? So
Right. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
right. So how we define, whoops, getting down to here. So this is the part that I started looking at the numbers. So this is like out of all the open space, here's how it was split. So I took it the percent of the town because that's how the POCD structured it.
Okay.
And came up with that based upon the 2016 POC definition, which is the D, M, and F above. That turns out to be 19.34% of the town's area, which is 228,992 acres, right? So that comes up to this. You add the farm and forest in there, you get 2746. But when you look at the extract above, based upon DM and F, you get about 17.66. So if I look apples to apples on this list, we went up 2% from 2015 to today. But let's start with that definition. Then I tried to figure out, this is the actual inventory chart from the POCD, and we're off by about 2-3%. In other words, they're actually almost 21% versus what we've got is like 19%. So something doesn't quite match. Now, Michelle, the airport alone would up it by probably 0.5%. I mean,
does the airport does the airport belong in here though?
I think, well,
I took the airport out. I had listed it before, but based on the comments that I've been receiving over the past month, I took the airport out.
But I don't know if the POCD had it in or out. That's a question,
Yeah.
for example.
Well, and that's, okay, so that's part of the problem, is that the POCD doesn't list all the properties that go into their total.
Right.
They just have this map, and I had to use the map to try to find them all.
Right. So
I don't know that there's any easy way to come to a closure on those numbers unless the town gave us the list of properties that went into the POCD's calculation.
Yes, and that was my last request based upon what you just sent me. I went, because how do I relate the two? So I did send that request in to say, who do I talk to take these two lists and kind of resolve now it's close, but how to resolve the difference. All right. For example, if they used the airport and we didn't, that would explain a piece of it, right? Now,
why did you think the airport was on their map or not?
Because there's pieces of the airport that are clearly marshland and other things. So yeah.
Right.
Now this is your green. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is your green belt one.
Well,
Do you want to mention?
The airport is probably town. I'm sorry, city. Because no, it's town.
No.
Sorry.
How much is the acreage? Does anybody know off the top of their head of the airport?
The airport acreage is 489 acres.
Right. Yeah, it's big. It's a big chunk.
It's a chunk, right?
So managed open space in the POCD says 234 acres. So that's not quite.
That's not managed. It might be facility. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Right. Facilities.
We don't know, right? So that's a question.
So that needs to be resolved. So the explanation for this page is what I talked about earlier. With I took Tom's map and it wasn't the latest one necessarily. So there might be some more that needs to be added to this. But I basically all the places on the update of the Greenbelt map. I looked at I looked at the pink circles. And I tried to locate all of there's a lot of little properties I didn't try to put in there, but I basically found all the chunks of property that were in if any part of the property was inside the pink circle, I put it on this list. Now I need to go back again with the new map and do a more thorough job. This was kind of a quick and dirty. I need to print it out and really look at it more closely, but that's what this is. So this is like the properties, again, if you notice in the the type, a lot of it is the Public Act farm and forest, and actually they're all farms. And then there's some vacant stuff, and then there's a few things that are municipal, the town and the city. And then one piece is University of New Haven. I don't even know what that is. I mean, I know what the University of New Haven is, but I don't know what the land is that. So this is just, this is the start at that process.
All right. In the interest of time, Tom, I'd like to go to the questions now that Michelle has articulated this. There's a lot of work, Guy. I know Michelle tears her hair out on this stuff, but so there's a lot of good work here, and it provides the basic. Now we can go, and once we have this, go starting asking questions like we just did. All right. We don't have the answers to those today, but it's actually not that far off. I mean, like I said, it's within 1% or 2%, which to me is not too bad for that route. But I would like to quickly address the questions from the text team, and then we have to do a schedule for release for that first round. Right. So those are 2 things I'd like to get done. So Tom, on the first one, you had update the open space map. Page 24, maybe I should stop sharing here. Okay. And do you want to bring back up the...
Yeah, I'm ready to share here. Let's see, where's my little Zoom thing here? I lost my Zoom. Oh, wait, there. And let's share screen. Okay, this is the page 24 map. So the reason I was asking this is the latest version we have from Jenna.
Right.
Are you developing, I guess the question to Michelle is, are you developing your own map based on all these other discussions, or are we at a position here that this is the latest and greatest, and that, do we have enough information to go to Jenna to ask her to update this with any changes that we would like to see?
My suggestion,
open space map.
Yeah, I would say just use this for now for the draft.
Yeah.
Because we have to agree on all these other things, because we eventually want to have the version of this that has our designations on it.
Right.
And my intention is to produce that. A little wrench in my works right now is that right now I don't have access to the College GIS because my contract ended. And they cut me off like immediately, but I'm in the process of getting a contract for next year, which means I'll get the access back again. I'm also seriously considering just, buying my own permit for a year, or seeing if I can actually use the Groton system, but play with it myself rather than asking Jenna, because I think we want to play with it a lot, and not just like, if we give it to her, can you do these things? Like say, oh, maybe we should do this differently. We can't do that with her. We can't keep, fine tuning it. So I need to play with it once I have access to the mapping system again.
All right. So Tom, can you put like the word draft on here?
Yes.
With a quick note? Okay.
Right.
So that's that one.
Okay.
The next one is page 69.
That's on Appendix A. Yeah, this is
right. This was the question: is what of that spreadsheet do we want to include in here, and do we want to include the parcel numbers and the addresses? Do we want to include, so it's a question of both what columns do we want to include and what rows do we want to include? Do we want to have it broken down into those different sets, like the sets that are similar to what's in the text? This is the actual parcel number with those things that are in there, and then also have, this is the dedicated, this is the managed, or whatever. How, we need to answer this question, and I don't think we want to hold up the release of this thing to answer that question.
Well, my thought on that would be that the list of open space that would result in the map would be public information because it's open space.
Right.
I think that perhaps we could put an example, like here are the columns right? And the categories, not necessarily all the details, and say it will be provided in the final version, but list, I mean, if it's town, state, city, or property, there's no problem saying, here's the property, here's the parcel, here's the acres. You know, even the reference to the POCD is fine and the address is fine. I mean, I don't think there's any, I mean, some of the types in the comments could be left off.
Right.
So my recommendation would be to provide a shortened version of the spreadsheet, which has the categories, which is kind of like compressed column A, I guess would be the major different categories. And then provide that to Tom to be able to put in there similar to the draft. So let me throw that out to
Tom the whole spreadsheet to work with if you wanted to. Were you able to access that, Tom?
Yes, I can. I have access to the entire worksheet.
To the Dropbox.
Clean that up and put it, and I'll just look at, now that I agree with you, I think it's a good idea to, if we're going to use that draft map that Jenna did, I can find those items and just put those in there for right now. Okay.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I'll just strip all the other lines out.
Yeah. Not sure there'll be one for one.
I'm trying to remember if that's, so the list that matches Jenna's map was actually in, that was the first thing that I had for the merge. So I'm trying
to summary list from the town section.
Yeah. So Tom, on the spreadsheet that you have, is there a tab at the bottom? That's the town, because I can't remember which version I left that.
I don't have that up right now, but you can dig it here.
The tab says summary list from town.
Yes. Okay. So that tab is what goes with Jenna's map.
Okay. Okay. I'll get that and clean that up.
All right.
I'll put it into tonight's version.
Appendix E, page 81.
Okay. This is the list of easements.
Oh yeah, I don't have anything new on that.
Okay. And I think the last item was.
I haven't tried to track those down, but we certainly need to do that.
Yeah, I think this is good enough the way it is, because this is all stuff that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And then the last one was the breaking things into the POCD identified areas in generic. And then having the second part was the updated from the parcel team and it was to complete the green belts. And I think it's free enough at this point I'll just make a statement in here saying that this is still under development based on
right, and that was that last tab that Larry showed us, that showed everybody, but we have to decide, do we want to really spell it out that way or not? So yeah, I would leave it under development, at least until we have more chance to talk about it.
It's an appendix, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Right.
Well, the current appendix F is what was in the POCD.
Like the first part of this is all this is right out of the PO. These are all the hatched areas, the
right.
Dark green light green or dark green areas.
Yeah, so that's fine to keep because it's already public.
All the pins and stuff out of that.
Yeah,
it's all been scrubbed. And in this one, just leaving this as blank I'll base the statement this will be under development.
Yeah, I think that's fine for now.
Okay.
All right. So my last question is our target for the phase 1 release of the plan.
I can promise to have this to you and everybody by I'm not gonna. It's too late tonight to get it out, but I will have it. I can have it out by 5 tomorrow.
Wow.
Because there's not that much here.
So the question is, do we all say close enough once Tom's done with what he's doing that's ready to release? I'm comfortable doing that.
You know, the only thing I'm really going to be tweaking is the stuff that that Bray brought up, that's the only real true writing I have to do here. The rest of this is all cutting and pasting and putting things in. But it's just those few lines that Bray had recommended at the very beginning in the executive summary, and the ties there is the only.
Right.
And
look,
what about Andre's comments?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Andre, he just added another one to where Bray was.
so we really have three things. If Tom has that done in the next couple of days, then I still think that I owe it to all of us to say, guys, just look at it one more time. Number two is we have the updated list of phase one reviewers, right, based upon today's discussion. And who's got that? Is that you, Bruce, or Tom has been keeping track of that one?
I can keep track of it. I mean, it's all we did was add 2-3 things tonight, so I can update that.
Well, no, but we then broke it up into 3 categories.
Oh yeah, I can change that too.
Okay, so we'll need that, and then the distribution mechanism. And what if I do that offline with Bruce rather than taking your guys' time? It would need a cover letter, maybe a posting in the website, whatever. So that's a mechanical. So I would say that if Tom would get it out next couple of days, then let's say, by the end of the week, everyone would take a look at it, by the 8th, that says potentially we could have a release date, June 8th or worst case, June 15th. Does that sound right, guys?
Well, if we're going to give everybody a chance for feedback, then we're going to have a special meeting for discussion. No, I'm serious. You can't.
Well, no. It depends if nobody has any feedback. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you
right.
give us the chance to feedback, we've got to have we have to have a meeting to have the discussion and then make it final.
Okay. So do you want to have a special meeting sometime in the next 2.5 weeks with a very specific objective that says, guys, final walkthrough, anybody has any last minute comments for the draft that's going out for release number 1?
Right. And I think we want to make it next week because we want to try to even get comments by our July meeting. So we don't, if we're going to get this done in 2020, we have 3 levels of review. We got to get that first level of input like in the next month.
Here's another alternative I could give you, Larry, is that if we believe with our 2 groups here is that as a text team, if Kristen and Ann and I agree with the wording, we could say as a text teams, here's the words, and then I can give it to you as the parcel team to take a second look at making sure I did your parcel part right, and says, hey, if you're the parcel team, the text team said everything's here, the parcel team agrees with everything, then I'll trust you guys to do the distribution. So if I can get this thing out to, I think if Kristen and Ann, if you're available either tomorrow afternoon or Wednesday morning, you can check your schedules, and I can give a commitment to Larry as far as getting that done this week. Either Tuesday afternoon, late, like 4 o'clock-ish, I can have everything ready, or do you want to do it first thing Wednesday morning?
Tomorrow 4. I think I might have a meeting Wednesday morning, so tomorrow at 4.
4 o'clock tomorrow? Okay, I could be ready for that.
All right, Michelle and Bray, when would you like to meet next week then? Assuming that the approach is okay.
Later this week, you mean?
Yeah, if you guys meet tomorrow, we should be able, if you get it to us, we should be able to meet on Thursday, right? If we have it by Wednesday, we can meet on Thursday.
Right?
So we're going to read the whole thing over once we get it back prior to our meeting on Thursday.
Well, we only have to look at the parts that talk about the parcels, because that's our job. Is the text team's going to agree on the text.
But you'll see the text. You'll have it available if you have some kind of major issue with it. I mean,
right.
or if you want to change it, be my guest. Okay, but I think you're going to find it in pretty good shape. I mean, that's a discretion of Larry, because he's also a chair here. He can use his executive discretion here in regard to if he feels that he needs to send it back to the text team for revamp.
I mean, the thing is that we could all, even after we get back the first layer of comments, we can still make stuff based on our own comments, even if nobody else mentioned it. So there's nothing that's saying that we can't continue to wordsmith it based on our preference.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be in a good enough condition to send out to the other.
Right. That's my point. It doesn't have to sound perfect to us necessarily. And so, but then the next question is, with those cover letters, when are we going to ask people to have their comments back to us by?
Well, my view is too much time. You get nothing. People do it in the last 2 days anyway. So I would
Give them
I would
like
do
2 weeks max.
Yeah, I would think of a 2 week.
I like that. Yes.
Period. Yeah.
Yep.
If they're going to do
And
it,
if they
they're
don't
going to do
comment, they had their chance, and so.
it. Well, there's other chances. I mean,
And they could, I mean, if they give us information later, that's fine. But I agree. Yeah. Say we'd like your comments back by 2 weeks from the date that it's released.
Let's say that if it gets out either the end of this week or early next week, if we say the 26th of June, which is the last Friday of June, I think that puts them in that time frame of 2 weeks to review it.
The only problem with that, not having it a little tighter, is then if it comes back to us, we haven't had a chance to look at it by, I'm not sure what day we're meeting in July, but.
the 6th. The 6th. So you got.
So it's
got a
gonna
week.
be, almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks to review the comments.
Yeah.
So if we get it back on the 26th of June, then we have 2 weeks before our next meeting.
I would just from a reality perspective, you're sending this out to GOSA, Avalonia and stuff. A lot of these people, and even the two commissions, they only meet once a month. Okay, so whether or not you're going to. It depends on. I think you're not going to get that much of a response just because of the time that they're going to want to take a look at it relative to who's going to have the authority to give comments back by. But I just, from a reality perspective, we can. I have no problem with the timeline, sending it out. We've done our best to give people heads up to this as best we can. Okay. And stuff, but the reality is I'm not expecting a lot of comments back by the 26th.
And the other thing to point out, it has been a matter of public record, because every time we've been meeting and the draft has been set out in the minutes, it's been in the public domain. So if they were really keyed up about it, they may have already, like, for example, GCA has had a ton of input because they're very, very, into it. So.
All right. Well, the first key is getting it out the door.
Right. To address John's comment, maybe we could have a caveat. We'd like the comments by June 26th. However, if if we will accept comments, and we're not going to promise to take them into account, but if you give them to us later, we may still be able to address them or something like that.
Yeah, that's a cover letter. I said I'd take a whack at that. All
Well,
right, so Bray.
you can invite them to the meeting. You can invite them to the next Conservation Commission meeting, and they can give some comments then.
I hear you. That kind of like then it gets. I'd rather have written input beforehand. Otherwise, we'll just go on forever at these meetings.
Yeah.
Look at how long we go on.
They still could anyway. I mean, they can come to the meeting anyway and give their comments.
We don't do that now.
Yeah.
So Bray, last item. When can you meet? Looks like Michelle's eager to meet anytime.
Get it done.
Well, Thursday, it have to be latter part of Thursday, not Thursday morning.
Like Thursday at 4 or something?
4 o'clock? Is that what yours?
Yes.
All right.
Thursday, 4 p.m.
Yep. And what is the topic?
Topic is any final comments on the document before it goes out the door.
Okay. And
all right.
as soon as the text team is done, they'll put it out to us.
Yep.
To review.
I'll have that out to you guys tomorrow. By we'll probably be, the text team's going to meet at 4 p.m. and I'll get it out a couple hours after, within a couple hours after that. So you'll see it Tuesday evening.
Okay.
All right. I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No,
I think we
somebody
adjourn.
else got to do it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Hey, very good guy. A lot of work got done tonight. We're almost there.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
kind of exciting that we're this close to getting that thing out.
All right. Super. All right. We'll be in touch.
All right. Night, everybody.
Well, and
All right.
Tom, you'll send us an invite to a meeting? You'll
Yeah.
create a meeting? Okay.
Right,
All
I'll
right.
get that out tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And-
Hasta la
and
vista,
Bruce-
everybody.
Yeah. We need to set something up probably maybe Friday
Okay.
that we can talk about the cover letter distribution, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, and also those two letters of support.
Yeah.
I need
All
those
right.
tomorrow.
Yep. Oh, no. I'm going to work on, you already have, let's see, you got one. I'll take care of the one to Maura.
Okay.
The one to you, we didn't make any change, did we?
Tom suggested some, just to add that, this is similar to the city, but we don't need, it's last minute. It's kind of tough to make changes now. It's more
Hold on.
important to get it in than it is to get it perfect.
Yeah. Let me see. So if I look what was in the document, in the agenda, 10, there it is, that one. Then, why didn't that? Looking for, there it is. So the one, that one, okay, it's the second one. The second one, I didn't hear any changes.
Tom just suggested you might want to add that the city had a very similar plan last year that got approved, and we would like a similar plan or something along those lines. We don't have. It was a suggestion, and we didn't vote on it, so we didn't vote on specifically including that language.
Letter to. All right, so I'll get that to you tomorrow.